Hello, all, and welcome back to Maps and Graps. Of course, you knew that this show was coming. And thanks to all the positive reaction on the Best of the Super Junior show that I did. Thank Josh from We Work Stiff podcast for coming and showing up. As always, I'm your host, Lyric Swinton, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. We have Kaden Lee here. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic this weekend. Having a great time. How are you?
You know, life is lifing for sure. But always happy to talk about one of my favorite things, which is Puro, and it's the most special time of the year, aka G1 season. Lots to chat about, I think, especially coming out of Forbidden Door. Obviously, there's some real gaps right now in the New Japan product. But there's also a lot of hope too. A lot of things to be excited about. President Tanahashi recently came out with a 10-point plan to try to make things a lot more streamlined. We have new rules this year for the G1. We're back to just a 20-man block. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So this is G1 Climax 34. I think coming off last year, I think a lot of us were underwhelmed last year, with the inflated block, had so many people and not that many memorable matches. I think the only real memorable matches I can remember were towards the end, like, the semis, of course, and then the final, of course. But other than that, not too much.
Yeah, it was a really bland G1. And you pointed out the inflated blocks. I think just adding so many people in there, especially a lot of people who just, it didn't feel like they belonged in a G1, not trying to put them down, but there were a lot of talent who normally would not be in a 20-man block. And because they went to so many people, it was a lot. There was a lot of wrestling. I think the 20-minute match time limit also brought it down a tiny bit because you were getting all of these draws and the draws weren't being used the way they should be used. And that also limited the way we could get the memorable matches. Not every memorable match needs to be over 20 minutes, but it certainly does help in the G1 when you can go 25, 26. And so it just kind of made it to where the semis were getting the really good matches, but the actual blocks weren't. So hopefully the return to form here, going down to the 20-man and going back up to a 30-minute time limit can help some of the concerns that everybody had last year.
I think that's a really good point. One thing that I tweeted about recently is that I have been craving for like a good epic. Like, like I think we've had obviously some great matches happen this year, but I think also with like the somewhat decline of New Japan, we've been missing like those epics. Like, and I think that, of course, AEW right now has like a stacked roster and they're amazing as far as like, the match quality, but they're also American television wrestling. And so very rarely are you going to get those 30 plus 60-minute, type epic, long, drawn out matches that, New Japan is essentially famous for. And I think that, especially one thing that we've noticed, at least with this younger generation of New Japan, is I don't want to say that they can't do it, but they really haven't been given a lot of the tools to be able to do so. The only thing that's ever come close is, I would say, the Shota Umino match with Will Ospreay last year. I think that went about 40 minutes, which was fantastic, by the way. One of the best matches of last year. But that's a rarity, these days, of having those long, drawn out like epics. And so the G1 has always been known for that. So I'm excited to see where this goes. So without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get to the first portion. We had some qualifiers. So that was one of the part of the new rules this year, of leaving a spot open in both A block and B block. And there was a qualifier tournament for each one. I think a lot of people were shocked that they actually really bet on the youth here. So recently, at the last night of the New Japan Soul tournament, Callum Newman secured his spot by defeating Yoshihashi. and Bolton Oleg secured his spot by defeating Taichi. So going into this tournament, did you predict any of this? Like, were these your picks? I think they were mine. I will say I did get this right, but I don't think I expected to be right. I expected them to go with like a old faithful. I think I was just more so being just, optimistic. I really was shocked that they went with like, the two young guys here. But what were your thoughts originally going into the qualifier tournament?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to see the youth in there if possible, because it's so important right now for New Japan to focus on that and get going for the next generation. But I did expect them to go with some people who are guaranteed for good matches. Ishii is consistently one of the better workers in the G1, along with Taichi over on the B block
Yeah.
side. So I was expecting both of them to make it in there. I heard a few days ago Ishii was dealing with a knee injury, I believe.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to keep him out and to make sure he gets healthy. It's just not realistic to have him go into a 10-person block because of how much more grueling that is than the 7-person blocks we had last year. And so I like putting Callum Newman in there, another young guy, and Bolton Oleg on the B block side. I haven't seen a lot of him. I've heard really good things from everybody. And again, I expected like Taichi and Tanahashi. I'm very glad they did not put Tanahashi in there. And
Yeah.
Taichi, I would have been okay with, but I'm glad they went with Young here.
Yeah. And I say this as a true Hiroshi Tanahashi 2024 apologist. I am very glad that he's not in the tournament. And I think that he's glad as well. I honestly, I think that, now that he's, in that mode to where he's not just a wrestler anymore, he's also the president. And I think that he's in that mode of really trying to think about what the future of New Japan is going to look like and really putting over this new talent. And I do think that there had to be a lot of tough decisions made, I think with this qualifiers, because while betting on the youth is a great thing and it's awesome, like, for guys like Callum Newman and Bolton Oleg to get that G1 experience, at the same time, you're missing out on opportunities for some of the other young guys to get some really valuable experience with some tenured workers. I think like Taichi, I think that Taichi has consistently been one of the better performers of the G1 and, over like the last few years. Even like, people like Ishii, like Yoshihashi, who are super solid workers. The thing about Ishii is that he's actually worked a really, really intense schedule. If you've seen some of the matches that he's done this year, I think about the match series that he's had with Masa Kitamiya he hasn't been fucking around at all. He's had a very, very, intense 2024 so far. And I think that, I think it's best for his body, just to protect, because that G1 schedule is very grueling. Like, on the days they're not wrestling, they're traveling by bus, and it's a very intense schedule. And we have to remind ourselves, as good as he is, I like to think of him as the best bout machine of the G1 Climax. He's 46 now, like 46. So really got to protect his body. And so I was a fan of this tournament. I think that it also really kicked off G1 season. Like, those last two matches were really, really good. Like, the Newman and Yoshihashi match, as well as Bolton Oleg and Taichi. That those were really, really good matches. And so I've been very high on Bolton Oleg for a while now. I think people have to think about his debut was a dark match at the Tokyo Dome. So that was his first match, Wrestle Kingdom 17 dark match. And so he's been super protected ever since. And you got to think he even won the 6-man titles with Tanahashi as a young lion, which is pretty much unheard of a young lion getting wins, let alone, winning gold. So I knew that if the time ever came, Tana was going to put him over, which he did. So super happy to see that. So without any further ado, let's get into these blocks. So now that we know, who are the final man in each of them. So we're starting off with A block. We have Shota Umino, Tetsuya Naito, Shingo Takagi, Sonata, Great Khan, Zack Sabre Jr., Gabe Kidd, Jake Lee from Noah, Evil, and now Callum Newman. Before we start going into, breaking it down, what are your initial thoughts on this block?
It's a good block with some people in there that I'm not really interested in. So Evil's the immediate, right? Like that's just the one who I just don't care for. I knew he was going to be in the G1. I can't do anything about it, but I'm just glad he's not in the block with Konosuke Takashita, so I'll take that.
Say that again.
I just
say that again.
Yeah, protect him.
Tiny
But I've only seen one Jake Lee match ever, and it was in person in Carrican Hall, and I was not impressed. So I'm a little.
Which one did you see?
It was some multi-man. I don't remember what the match was. It was like a random multi-man on a Noah show.
You were at that. Were you at the Limit Break show?
No, I was. Maybe it was. I was the one.
Or was it a Sunny Voyage?
It was Star Navigation.
Who was on that show? Was that the?
That was the one with the main event where they did like the new stable.
Oh yeah, you were at the All Rebellion show.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so for people who aren't familiar with Pro Wrestling Noah, I want to start by saying I love Pro Wrestling Noah. Like especially this year, a lot of people give them shit, for things like the past, and and some purists are, salty about the Fed partnership, which is all valid, right? Like that's all valid. Mm-hmm. However, guys, they have been hitting on full cylinders all year, like just all year. Noah has gotten their shit together. They've been engaging. I mean, I feel like they finally figured out their main event picture. They figured out their top guys. They have an interesting tag division. Like they're really figuring it out. Except Jake Lee has never moved me, like ever. And so for just a little, even going further backwards. So Jake Lee is still fairly new to Noah. So he was an All Japan top guy. And he made his debut in Noah on January 1st, 2023 at the Noah New Year show, which is also the show where it was, Great Muta versus Shinsuke Nakamura. And so after that, he essentially goes on a blitz through Noah. He takes right after Kaito Kiyomiya loses to, Okada. He then immediately drops the GHC Heavyweight Championship to Jake Lee. Jake Lee then defeats all the Noah top guys. He gets essentially the top guy treatment. Even though for me, I think watching him wrestle sometimes feels like watching paint dry, respectfully. He started his own faction. It's called Good Looking Guys. And so Jack Morris, Anthony Green, Yohei, they got their own thing going on. And so at one point they were ruling all the gold, right? So he nobody expected him to stay in Noah long. Like this felt like it was just a pit stop for him to get to where he wants to go. And if anybody has also been paying attention to Noah, Jake Lee is not announced for, a lot of future dates past the 13th of July. And he's announced that at the 13th of July Budokan show for Noah, he's officially dissolving Good Looking Guys, which makes me believe that I don't think this is just a guest spot in the G1. I think that there's a really good chance that he is signed as soon as this tournament is over, which is, depending on who you ask, is great or terrible news. If you ask me, terrible news. I think right now, New Japan already has a big enough problem. And I didn't mean to go on a Jake Lee rant, but hey, it's my podcast, so whatever. New Japan has a big enough problem of, I feel like, investing in shitters when you have the talent, you have great talent right there, but you just insist on pushing like the same guys down your throat. Look at them. There's two of them right here on this list, right? Evil, Sonata. I digress. And what scares me is because like he's technically like treated as such. He does get the top guy treatment. You got to think he was teaming with Bullet Club. He main evented all together versus Tetsuya Naito. What scares me is he actually might get a finalist spot.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's terrifying. Yeah. So I think that is the thing about A Block. I think.
Yep. That's definitely a big issue.
There's as much great talent as there is, right? I think that this is technically, like I would say, I believe that the G1 winner, it's a great chance that it's coming from A Block, right? You have Shota Umino in this block. You have Tetsuya Naito, the current IWGP heavyweight champion, in this block. You have Shingo Takagi in this block. You have Zack Sabre Jr. in this block. You have Gabe Kidd in this block. But you also have Evil, Jake Lee, Sonata, and Great-O-Khan, and Cal Newman. Do what you want with that information. So what are you excited for about this block? Let's start with the good stuff. Well, we've already started with the bad stuff. So let's move on to the good stuff. What are you excited for A Block?
I think it's the matches between those top people because the top people are so good. Naito, I am very interested to see how he does. I have not been liking most of Naito's work over the last 2 years. I think he's had like 2 matches that I actually enjoyed. The Ospreay match and then the final. I can't remember who he faced in the finals of the G1 match.
Was it Okada?
I think it was Okada. Yeah. Those were the last 2 ones. I didn't even really like the Sonata match.
He was concussed for half of them.
Yeah. I really like that. The Ospreay match I think is fantastic. It's my favorite match.
It was one of my favorite. It was one of my top 10 last year.
It was really that was his best in a very long time. But I thought the first Moxley match I thought was fine.
I loved it. I loved it. Maybe it's because I was there, but I loved it.
I was ringside.
Yeah, I loved that match. I think that was the best match that he had since the G1 final.
I do agree with that. But I thought the rematch of Forbidden Door was a mess.
No, it was. It won 100%. And I say this as a Moxley apologist. I also think too I think this is a great time to talk about the Naito problem, actually. So right now, I think that there's been a lot of discussion, especially coming out of Forbidden Door, about Naito. And I think some people are like, we need to just take the belt off of him and he needs to just be put down because he can't go anymore. Which is it's a very one-sided take. And I think that there's also this take of Naito doesn't need to be a good wrestler right now. He's just over and his story is about struggle and there's things like that. And I think that that's also a very one-sided take. And this is the truth, what I believe to be the truth. And I say this as a Naito fan. I was there at Wrestle Kingdom in the Tokyo Dome. And when I tell you that I have never seen that type of connection with a crowd, with an audience, the way that Naito had that audience, he has their hearts in his hands. And that's just the truth. Like nobody in Japan right now, like almost nobody in the world. I think the only time that I've ever really seen like that type of just raw connection was probably Sting's retirement. I think that's maybe the only other time I've seen something like that, of just that raw connection. He is loved to the point to where he could go out there on crutches. He could go out there in a wheelchair. They will cheer for him. They are going to love him. They are going to spend all of their money on LIJ merch. They are going to wave their titles and Naito down the rap. Like and to the point to where, I think me and Josh, when we were still talking about this because we were both there at the Dome during the Sonata match, I was tricked into believing that it was actually good. That it was actually good. Tricked, at least from the just based off the live crowd reaction, right? Of just you get tricked. And even to where, Evil attacks him at the end and the crowd thinks that they're not going to get the roll call and they're devastated, right? Like they are devastated. And then he does the roll call and people are cheering like Jesus came back. Like, I'm not even joking. And then I get home and I, because I'm writing stuff, like writing, articles and stuff. And so I'm just like, okay, let me rewatch some of these matches back before I start writing. And then I rewatched it. I'm like, this is fucking terrible. This match was terrible. Like, he couldn't get up for the Destino. He had to attempt it like 3 times. But it's also one of those things to where New Japan just isn't in a position to where they can sit him down. He's the only star left, like true mega star left. Not star in training, not future world champion. He's the only tried and true star left. Now, does that mean that? And my worry, actually, is that last year, I don't believe that Naito was as in bad of a physical condition as he was until he did the G1. I think he was still serviceable before he did that G1. But after G1 Climax 33, his decline was, awful. Like, it was like a straight down.
Yep.
Straight down afterwards. And like that took, I think, 2 years off his career. No joke. Mm-hmm. And so look at the block he's in right now. Like, everybody's already like, Naito needs to be in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom. Okay, that's fair. What will be left of him?
Mm-hmm.
And like, we're getting into this thing of just like, okay, like, well, he doesn't, it's about struggle. Yes, his story is about struggle, and we love Naito, right? But also at the same time, I hate to be that person because I never try to get in like to these wrestler safety conversations, but also at the same time of you are pushing somebody to do things and go, like we said earlier, 25, 30 minutes every night, because that's what the world champion does, right? Like, how is this sustainable from now until January 4th?
I'm going to make a comparison that people are really not going to like at all, but I think it's fairly accurate. Naito's push right now is like if you put the AEW World Championship on Chris Jericho right now. I don't think there's the same crowd reaction necessarily, but
definitely a different crowd reaction, yes. But very similar as far as like,
yes, in terms of where they are. And I'd argue Jericho might be able to put on a better match right now than Naito.
Yes. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like, it pains me to say it, but yes. And like, you got to think Jericho's about 10 years, almost 10 years older. Yeah. But also at the same time, Naito's never gotten to sit down. You know, he is the heart and beating. And I think that's why he's loved so much. He is the beating heart of New Japan Pro Wrestling at this point.
Yeah.
He's at every house show. He's at every show. He's going to do everything. Like, and to go without rest, like let's just look at Tana, right? Tana's 46. Think about what other 46-year-olds are right now in their career. Samoa Joe is 45.
Mm-hmm.
Bryan Danielson's what, 43? I think.
Yeah, I think AJ is 46. AJ and Cena, I think, are both 46.
So think about, even today, AJ, look at some of these other people who have either taken breaks or, worked the easier style for parts of their career. They're much better physical shape than
Mm-hmm.
Tanahashi. And like, don't get me wrong, there's just a price to pay of being the ace. Like, there is a price to pay of genuinely being the ace of doing things. Look at Kenny Omega at 40 years old, think about him compared to a lot of the stars who spent most of their careers in America. Completely different as far as body injuries right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the truth of there's a price to pay. And I think Naito has carried such a heavy burden for so long. And I do think that I don't know how this shapes out. And I think because I get why he's in that position. Like, I think everybody understands why he's in that position. However, these young guys, they don't just need moments, they need matches. And I think that's why when Yota Tsuji won the New Japan Cup and he had the match with Naito, losing didn't hurt him, but the fact that it wasn't a match that anybody remembers or wrote home about, that hurt him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about it. Even when Shota Umino, like, I think Shota Umino still gets the benefit of the doubt because he was able to have that fantastic match with Will Ospreay of just like, okay, well, we know it's in him. He just needs the right person to bring it out of him. Like, we know it's in him, right? Like, we know we know it's in him. The other young guys have not gotten that opportunity, and will they get that opportunity is the real question. So I think that Naito, especially if he ends up in the Tokyo Dome, which he almost certainly will, in a top match, he needs to have an opponent that can do something with next to nothing, which is my case for Zack Sabre Jr., but we'll get into that later.
I think the most important thing is that this needs to be it. Like, you need to get everything out of Naito in these last 6 months to when you get to January 4th, you simply cannot put him back in the position to be a top guy after this, or at least as a main eventer. You can give him the match on a pay-per-view, but you're at the point now where you just need to bite the bullet and build the guys you have under contract. Because you look at what New Japan did in the last 3.5 years with that title, 8 world champions, 5 of them are AEW talent now. One of them was already one of them's Moxley, who was with AEW. 4 of them went on to leave, and you knew Okada, like, you must have known Okada was going to go by early 2023, because I knew Okada was leaving in early 2023. So I'm sure they knew. It's Jay White. They must have known Jay was going to leave. Sonata, like, taking the bet on Sonata. They didn't take the bet on the right people and didn't actually invest in them. It's many different things that New Japan did that got them to where they are now, where they only can rely on putting the belt on Naito. So you got to bite the bullet at this point and use the G1 to build the people, give them the wins, and you hope that by the time January 4th comes along and Naito drops that belt at Wrestle Kingdom, that you can rely on Shota, you can rely on Shingo, on Gabe Kidd, on hopefully Zack Sabre Jr. with that championship, to a lesser extent, a David Finlay, to really carry the company into the next era. And if they're not there, you just got to ride it and pray you get there.
And I think also New Japan is in a better position this year because you have Wrestler Dynasty. So I think, like, at the end of the day, you can do a 2-for-1 special of, like, people who are going to want to see their old faves who have left on January 5th. They're just going to probably buy a ticket for January 4th as well. Yep. So at least I think that you're going to have, I'm not going to say it's going to be a sold out house, but you're going to have a decent house for, Tokyo Dome right now, regardless. And I also think it's one of those things too of just New Japan did invest in a lot of people who did end up leaving. And I do think that part of that was in reaction to how the company handled the pandemic. And I think a lot of wrestlers had made their mind up then, and a lot of them talked openly about it. I think that Like you said, betting on Sonata. You got to think Will Ospreay was yelling into a camera for months saying, New Japan Pro Wrestling, I want to carry this company. I want to be the guy. Pick me, choose me, love me. They picked Sonata.
Yep.
We saw how that went. And I think it's also too, and think about who has been invested in this year, over the past year. Evil, David Finlay, like, you know, a whole bunch of people who House of Torture has basically been the main faction, right? Of just a whole bunch of things and people who haven't really garnered any results. But consistently being pushed over and over again. Look at the Global Heavyweight Championship right now, right? Like the state of that belt. It was supposed to be the second coming of the U.S. Heavyweight belt or the Intercontinental Championship. It is honestly less valuable than the TV Championship.
Yeah, they pulled the trigger on a snap, on a whim, and they put the belts on Nemeth and Riddle. And neither guy worked out, and neither guy was going to work out. There's not been a long-term investment in any of the guys they've said. Last summer, they named Yota Tsuji, Ren Narita, and Shota Umino, the Reiwa Musketeers, and then go into the G1 and give them nothing. Put them all on the same block and just have them all tie against each other, and nobody gets a major win. They all just keep losing to everybody else. They also just didn't have memorable matches. It's the investment. It's not just saying, oh, this didn't work for a month, let's pull the trigger and do something else. They need to just have faith in those guys. They should have let Ospreay put over Shota. They should have never. I mean, Finlay winning the belt was going to happen no matter what, but you should have just done Ospreay and Mox one-on-one and done something else with Finlay. Figured out what you wanted to do with the belt. I'm sure Ospreay would have been fine dropping it to Finlay one-on-one on his way out at one of the New Beginning shows.
Yeah.
I'm sure, like, I don't know what went on with Okada, but not even giving Okada a chance to, like, maybe Okada would, I don't know if Okada said no to putting someone over. I have no clue, but I could see him wanting to.
I don't think that, I'm not sure if Okada would have put someone over, but I don't think that he exactly had to for it to be effective. And the reason why I say this is because look at that last Korakuen show that he did, right?
Yeah.
The last Korakuen show, the never six-man open weight title match versus TMDK.
Yeah.
And what that match did for Kosei Fujita in loss and losing. And I mean, look at him now. I mean, of course, he had the star potential. That's why I say Fujita, as far as like the essence of being the star and having long-term potential, I think Fujita is the closest thing that New Japan has to Okada, in my opinion. Okada just didn't wrestle any of them. Like, you know, he just didn't wrestle any of them at all. And I think that probably hurts them more than anything. It's one thing to lose, right? Because, you know, losses, you can, even if you don't get it back now, later in his career, who knows, like, you'll eventually get that win back, or not even just win back, you'll get a rematch once they turn into a bigger star and become so undeniable to the point where Okada has to face them again. They just didn't wrestle him at all.
Yeah.
And I think that hurt more than anything. Of just, you know, I always believe that a match done well has two winners. And they really never got that opportunity. And I've said this over and over again, is that a lot of these young guys, they have great fundamentals. They can wrestle really well. They know how to wrestle, but they don't know how to brawl. Like the fighting spirit, that grittiness is missing. And that's why coming out of that block in the G1, who are the most memorable two people? Kaito Kiyomiya and Gabe Kidd. A few that was able to be heated up this year and sell tickets for a whole different promotion. You know, like it's one of those things to where they've lacked that opportunity. You know, I think like everybody wants to play a blame game between, oh, this is AEW's fault, this is New Japan's fault. There's some blame, I think, to go around everywhere. But for the most part, most of this does fall on the booking of New Japan. Booking, just straight booking, you know, like The talent, I think everybody wants to say, oh, there's no talent here, etc. They haven't been built real well.
Mm-hmm.
And so where we are now is, especially I think coming off of Forbidden Door, you can say whatever you want about, like, you know, the relationship between AEW and New Japan, but I do believe that the two people who came out of Forbidden Door looking the strongest from New Japan Pro Wrestling are Zack Sabre Jr. and Shingo Takagi.
Yeah.
So what does this mean for the G1 going forward?
Yeah. I think yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it, and if they really decide now is when we buy in and treat it well, treat it the way we need to. And we're going to see that very quickly with what they do with Jake Lee and Evil. I think Evil more so than Jake Lee because he is in the company, and Jake Lee, at least like technically speaking,
As of right now.
Yeah, he's not signed. So I think what they do with him, it's going to be very telling. How they book Shota, I think, is also in this block specifically. I think the person needed to watch how they book is Shota Umino, and if they make him look strong.
100%. And I think also of just, you know, he on first night, Shota has Callum Newman. Mm-hmm. So I think, like, you know, he's going to pick up a win on first night. But I don't think that, how do I say this? I think Shota needs to lose a couple of these matches. I think he needs to lose a couple of these big matches. Like, yeah. I know some people are just like, oh, he needs to win the G1. I think the worst thing that we can do is force a G1 victory on somebody who's not ready. And I'm not convinced he's ready. This year, no. Like
this year, I don't think so. I would have.
I would have too. I think that there was somewhere between, you know, Windy City Riot and now, I expected them to really tell a story with him, right? After he loses to Mox.
Yeah.
I expected them to really tell a story with him of just like how he's rebuilding himself. And they didn't really do much at all. Like, you know, we're the rivals, etc. Meanwhile, Gabe Kidd is over here doing this stuff. And like, you know, even Yota Tsuji, like, you know, LIJ's been having like their own, you know, internal stuff going on recently of just, it's kind of feel like he's just been there. You know, Shota's been there. And we just had this super hot story, you know, coming out of not Windy City Riot, sorry, Resurgence. You know, with him and Mox, and I think this really great match. And they kind of just dropped it by the wayside. You know, he wasn't visible at Forbidden Door. He hasn't really done anything of note on the, you know, the New Japan Soul Tour. And
I think he's injured, right?
Yeah, like, you know, he's out with an injury. But even that just came out of nowhere. You know, like that just came out of nowhere. Like, you know, he did Rampage. It was what was that, Dynamite? Or
no, it was he faced somebody on Rampage, and that's where he suffered the injury. Yeah.
It's like, no, but he didn't suffer at Rampage. They said like he had already flown home.
Oh.
And he was training, and then suddenly like he had an injury training. Like, so he was already home. So like even that, like he's in a very weird position. Like, I think that he's just in a very weird position of just it kind of, and don't get me wrong, life happens. Not saying anything like against that, but in comparison, heading into the G1, it feels like a lot of that goodwill that he had gotten is kind of going cold.
Yeah.
And I feel like, especially when you have like Zack Sabre Jr., he's heating up, right? Heading into the G1. Shingo Takagi's heating up, heading into the G1. Naito just got the title back. Gabe Kidd has been like, you know, doing Noah and all these other things. Like, everybody has really kind of been locked in, but he hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Some parts are not his fault, of course, but they haven't really built him as to where I can see like, oh, this guy should win the G1. Like, I don't see it. Not this year at all. But I also think part of that is because I'm almost positive his match in the Dome is going to be versus Mox.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I think I really wanted them to do was do the Shota Mox first match at Forbidden Door. I think that would have gone very well with that crowd. The AEW crowd loves Shota Umino, evident in the Casino Gauntlet match in LA in late May. I would have held that off from Resurgence and done someone else for Moxley there, had Mox retain and then carry the title into Wrestle Kingdom. I know that was not very realistic because AEW does not want to send Mox away for a month for the G1, although they'd be fine without him. He's not really on TV anyways
He
in a
hasn't been on
story.
TV anyway.
He
Yeah.
hasn't been a consistent story for like a year and a half, but oh well. I would have liked it. He might not want to. He might not wanted to have to do the G1 anyways. Like I could see him, like the last time he did the G1 was when he got his MRSA, so I could see him being like, I don't want to go back to that. Let me not get another bad infection on my elbow. But that's what I would have wanted to see. I understand the decision not to do it. I think there are still very good options for what they can do, but Shota, yeah, I am very interested though if like the decision to not put him on anything, Forbidden Door, to take like whether I don't know, the injury stuff is weird. I immediately was like, it's a little odd that they're like, oh, he's out right now, but he's perfectly fine for the G1. I wonder if that is a way to protect him because they do want to have him win and put him all the way, and they just didn't want to risk an injury. But that doesn't make like, why would you not use Forbidden Door to heat him up? It just, the whole thing there doesn't make, I'm very confused.
Yeah, I don't think that they would do that to protect him because like honestly, how old he's 25. Like I mean, you don't out of all the guys that you need to protect and sit down before the G1, it needs to be Naito. Respectfully, like seriously, I genuinely do not want to see Naito wrestle again until the G1 starts. I think he needs to sit down. I don't want to see him wrestle again until the G1 starts.
Yeah.
And I want him to be preserved as much as possible. But yeah, I think Shota's a very interesting story. Like I don't expect Great O'Khan to go far, obviously, but I'm very, very interested. I'm not gonna lie. Great O'Khan versus Evil might actually end up on my worst match of the year list. Just saying that there. I do think that Cal Newman is going to have a very I'm honestly, you know what? I don't really know. I don't know how well he's going to do with some of these opponents, like versus the Evils and the Jake Lees of just like he's not at the point yet to where he can like carry a match. And so I'm interested to see where he goes, but I do think that he's going to have very, very good performances against some of the better workers. I think Zack Sabre Jr. is going to give him a lot. I think it's going to make him look good. Obviously, he's not going to win a lot of matches, but he's going to look good.
Yeah.
I think Gabe Kidd is going to, they're going to have a great match. I think that Shingo Takagi is probably going to give him a really great match. Yeah. Shota's interesting. Same thing with Naito, but Naito has been really giving to some of these young guys. Like, if I'm not mistaken, have they wrestled before? I think that they might have. Yes, they did. They did wrestle. They have the opening match on Dominion. Naito and Cal Newman.
Oh, yeah.
It was the opening match in Dominion.
Yeah.
And Naito even took his shirt off. That's what I was like, oh my gosh, this is so nice. He's being so nice. He's so generous. So, I actually think that I don't think that match would be particularly long, and I do think that that's also one of the things with Naito and the G1. I think conserve his minutes as much as possible.
Yeah.
He does not need. We took Toru Yano out of here for a reason. We don't need 15 minutes with Evil. No.
Yeah.
We just
I do have two upsets that I kind of picked for Callum Newman that I think would be fun. I don't think both would happen. I think at least one of them should. I'd have him upset either Evil or Gabe Kidd. I think because they're like in this block specifically, they're the two biggest heels. I think if you did Gabe Kidd, especially to continue a United Empire War Dogs thing there, I think that'd be really interesting.
I think that that's really interesting too, especially with the history between them two.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he could. I would say that I think he could upset Sonata potentially too. Of just I don't feel like Sonata has a lot. Maybe this is where Sonata like completely, I don't know. I think that's another good question too of just who is going to rebrand themselves in this tournament. I feel like G1 is always a reset for certain guys.
Yeah.
Hanari came back last year with the tribal tattoos and everything like that. This is a lot of times it's a big reset. And so I'm interested to see, okay, who's going to reset themselves? And you know what? Sonata might surprise us all. Not saying that he's just going to magically become the most interesting wrestler in the world. I don't think that. But I do think that he's probably felt it of just ever since he lost the championship. He's just another guy in just 5 guys. And honestly, he's not even the top guy anymore. I would say the top person in that faction is probably Taichi.
Oh, yeah.
So
Taichi rules.
Oh my gosh, I hate, like, I get why Sonata's in it because he's the former world champion, but guys, I would have given Taichi that spot in a heartbeat. Like, I love Taichi. I do think that, don't get me wrong, I think that Bolton Oleg is awesome, but it does hurt that Taichi's not in this tournament. I love that guy, man.
Yeah, I think another interesting element is Capital Collision is on August 30th.
Yeah.
So I could see them having whoever. So one of the people who pins Gabe and one of the people who pins Naito in the tournament having you have immediate matchups there for that show because they're both being advertised. So I definitely think Naito's gonna defend on that show. So you could have Callum pin Gabe Kidd and you can run that there in DC.
Yeah, I think also too. It's going to be very interesting for a couple of title pictures. You have how many champions are in this match? Oh, just 2. Well, there's only 2. So there's 3 because Gabe Kidd is currently the New Japan Strong Openweight champion.
Strong Openweight.
Rito Khan has the King of Pro Wrestling Championship, and then obviously Tetsuya Naito. I said Taito. Is the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. So it's going to be very interesting title implications. I do believe, going back to that Capital Collision show, because Gabe Kidd has a strong belt, I do believe that whoever pins him from that block will probably be his opponent for that show.
100%.
And I also think it's very interesting too of just the G1 officially ends on August 18th. I think that we see Zack Sabre Jr. at All In. I think he's going to be on that card somehow, some form or fashion. I do think so.
I know he's wrestling Hechicero the day before on that Rev Pro anniversary show.
Yeah.
Or it's the day after. It's that weekend. I could see him definitely getting put on that show somewhere. I know he's not wrestling Brian. So I don't know what the path is for him and who he could face. But I mean, you could find somebody. I'm sure it's not going to be difficult.
Yeah, you can find somebody. I'm trying to think of who would be, well, if Shibata wasn't, you know what, now I think about it, what if they put the Samoa Joe, Hook, and Shibata team versus TMDK?
I'd love that if I wasn't confident they were doing Samoa Joe and Jericho.
Well, they're doing it on Dynamite. They're doing a street fight. They just announced it, didn't they?
Have they already a singles match?
Yes, I think they announced that.
Did I miss this? Now I need to check.
Oh, please. Yeah, it's been announced. July 10th in Calgary. Jericho versus Joe in a Stampede street fight.
Oh, is it for the title? No, this is So I think they could just do Jericho. I guess it's possible. You could just do Joe and Zack Sabre 1-on-1.
Oh my God!
Finally do that match.
Wait, what if that's the match?
You could. That's what I would do.
All last year, like they teased it all last year on Ring of Honor.
Oh yeah. I was at the tapings where they teased it.
Like they were both TV champions, and then nothing, nada.
Yeah.
More of the story, I do think that Zack Sabre Jr. ends up on that card. So I would love if he went in as I
think it's that, or they do Zack Sabre Ospreay is the other one I've been thinking. If they're not doing Max at
I think it's
Wembley.
going to be Max versus Osprey. Unfortunately, now if it was up to me, it would be Osprey, Pac, Zack Sabre Jr. for the international belt. I think a nice British international championship match would have just popped everyone. But hey, I'm not the booker, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that a couple of people are going to have like some interesting stuff happening and coming up after that. But also opening night, Tetsuya Naito versus Shingo Takagi. What do you think?
I have Shingo Takagi taking this on opening night. There's always, every year, opening night gives you some big shocking result. Last year was Taichi beating Osprey, and a lot of people had Osprey winning the G1, and they were in Taichi's hometown, so it made sense. But still, I was shocked. So I think I would have him win.
I think, yeah, you know what? Speaking of that, let's go down this opening night. Naito versus Takagi, Shota Umino versus Cal Newman, Sonata versus Jake Lee, Jesus, Gabe Kidd versus Evil, Great Khan versus Zack Sabre Jr., Yota Tsuji versus Konosuke Takeshita, Hiroki Goto versus Jeff Cobb, El Phantasmo versus Hanare, Yuya Uemura versus David Finlay, and Ren Narita versus Bolton Oleg. That's some good stuff right there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some shitters for sure, but the good outweighs the bad. I also think it's interesting that Naito and Shingo are facing each other in the light of that LIJ 6-man tag recently. Like, I think that I said this earlier this year of just right now, LIJ is the most popular faction, but it's also a team of absolute alpha males. So you had the face of the juniors division in Hiromu. You have Naito, who's the most popular person in Japanese wrestling. You have Shingo Takagi, and you have Yota Tsuji. Obviously, they say that they're a team of individuals, but I do think, like, especially now, you have a lot of them are getting antsy for more. Of just not just being a faction of being, top guy. I think we're starting to see some of the cracks in, in LIJ, especially with Hiromu now definitely wanting to challenge Naito. But I think that what we've seen this year is that it kind of feels in a way that Shingo is kind of waking up and it's just like, okay, I want more than this. Like, I want to be a top guy, the guy. And also you have Yota Tsuji, who wants to be like that. I would also say those Yota Tsuji, Shingo Takagi interactions in that match were beautiful. I am so sad they're not in the same block. And I would kill for them to be finalists just so I can see that match one time. Like, I think it's going to be interesting because Shingo and Naito in that 3-on-3 LIJ match, they were partners instead of opponents. So we really didn't get to see those two face off in, like, the current spell. So I'm interested to see how that shakes out.
Yeah.
I'll wait until after we've done B block to ask who your finalists from A block will be. Okay. But I think we have some questions, so let's go ahead and start getting through these. Okay, so one question is, and I'm reading these questions that we sent through Twitter before we go into B block. Do you think New Japan should throw away heavyweights and junior heavyweights in the open weights?
I wouldn't throw away heavyweights and junior heavyweights. I think it makes New Japan different than American professional wrestling. I am a fan of. I wouldn't say like I love it in general. I think it's very like I think it needs to be contained. Work in this situation. I think it works very well for New Japan Pro Wrestling. I just think they need to do a better job of moving the people around when they need to, because Hiromu is somebody who desperately needs to move up. At this point, El Desperado is somebody who probably should start getting ready to go into the heavyweight scene as well because of how popular they are. And both of those guys have just been kind of sitting there. And it also allows you to elevate new people like a Doki, like a Francesco Akira, and you don't just have the same three people cycling those championships.
So I agree and disagree with that. I don't believe that they should go to an open weight. I think that New Japan, their history is so rich with their junior division. I think even look at what they were able to do with All Star Junior Festival, like, you know, both stateside as well in Japan. I think that junior heavyweight wrestling is very special. And I think that junior heavyweight wrestling is, if it's done well, it can be one of the best things that New Japan has to offer. And I think it shouldn't be seen as like a downgrade. And I think that's why I don't believe El Desperado should move to heavyweight. And the reason why is because if we saw the way that, you know, Best of the Super Junior shook out and Dominion, and even most recently of just El Desperado, his popularity has gotten him to a point, especially while New Japan has been struggling, to the point to where the juniors can main event big shows, to where the junior title a lot of time has meant more and felt just as big as the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. And I also think if you look at Best of Super Juniors, look at what El Desperado was able to do for that division. Of so many people had their crowning moments up against him, such as Kosei Fujita, such as, you know, Akira in last year's Best of the Super Junior, such as Kevin Knight. Like, El Desperado is in a position to really be a kingmaker. And also, he's so popular, not just in New Japan, but everywhere with, let's think, with the Desperate Invitational of just, he has the credibility to where if he's in the main event, it doesn't matter if he's a junior or not, people are going to watch and tune in. And he's going to anchor that card. Now, Hiromu, on the other hand, is, and also I think El Desperado still has a lot that he can do in that division. Like, I think, and I think that Best of Super Juniors, like those matches were like Kosei Fujita, like that was just a taste of, he can really get some of these guys over. But Hiromu, on the other hand, he desperately needs something new. He's done it all. And he's done it all at least 3 times each. Like, he needs something new. He's also always said that, like, he wants to, of course, like, he's always loved junior heavyweight wrestling, always been an ambassador for junior heavyweight wrestling, but especially now, those calls are coming for him to, like, okay, I want to fight Naito. I want to fight these big guys. Like, that's where I want to be. And at this point, they need him. Like, I mean, I think the company needs him. And I think I'm really upset that he wasn't in this tournament. I think that putting him in this year would have been a really good call. But, you know, hey, like I said, I'm not the booker. I think that a healthy New Japan, if people look back to, like, the golden era, you know, when Omega and Okada were tearing it up, or even, like, before then, like, the junior heavyweight division was just as good. You know, like, you had the Ospreys, the Ricochets, Kushida in his prime. You know, you have to think, for the longest, Kenny Omega himself was a junior heavyweight. So, I mean, New Japan cannot really return to their former glory until both divisions are firing on all cylinders. And I think that El Desperado needs to be the guy for that junior division. And I do think that Hiromu, there's nothing left for him. I think there was always this need to try to put him into that Liger box, you know, that Jushin, that forever junior heavyweight, like, Liger box. But that's just not him. You know, it was him for a while, but it's time. He's his own person. He has to carve his own path. And also in LIJ right now, just, you know, they have 2 juniors. They have 2 other juniors. They have Bushi and Teton of just, I think I would put Hiromu in heavyweight division personally.
Yeah. I feel much more strongly about putting Hiromu in the heavyweights than I do about Desperado. I think you made really good points about keeping him down there. And I can't say I disagree with it. Hiromu is the one where I'm like, okay, let's do it.
And also, let's think about Desperado's. Desperado's a sick fuck. So, like, and I say that in the most loving way of just, he doesn't care that he's a junior. He's gonna, if he wants to wrestle a heavyweight guy, he's just gonna do it. He does.
Oh
He's
yeah.
not going to wait for New Japan to tell him to do it. He's not going to wait. Like this man will literally plan his own show and wrestle heavyweights on it just because he wants to. Like even you have to think he had a full rivalry with John Moxley, like a full rivalry while still being a junior heavyweight. Of just Destiny's just a sick fuck. He's going like if he just feels so limitless, right? Like he feels like being a junior heavyweight for him doesn't feel like a cage. It doesn't feel like he's being limited. For Hiromu, it does. Like Hiromu being a junior right now is a limitation. Despy doesn't have that problem.
Yeah.
So, another question: how do you think Oiwa should return to New Japan? I have a hot take on this.
I'll let you go. You take the hot take.
I have a hot take on this. Guys, does Oiwa actually return to New Japan in the first place? Here's the thing. Excursions in Japan are rare, if ever. That was honestly one of the first times I've ever even heard of some shit like that, of somebody going to spend their excursion in a partner promotion. And I can see why it's rare, because at the end of the day, like I said, Noah has gotten so much better. They've gotten their main event picture figured out, etc. And a large part of that is due to Ryohei Oiwa. And Oiwa solves a problem for Noah immediately. And honestly, I told myself that I wasn't even going to even share this out loud until I saw the G1 blocks, because I was just like, okay, he's been there for about a year now. He's surely coming home and doing the G1. And when I saw his name wasn't even around, like, I was like, oh, okay. And then you got to think he's already declared himself for the N1 Victory Tournament. He's beefing with the top guy. He's in the main event picture. He is fit Noah like a glove. At the end of the day, he solves a problem for Noah that they've desperately needed. Like, they needed another young top guy to really kind of be put up there with Kaito Kiyomiya. He fits the bill perfectly. And I also think that for him, like I said, there is a good chance that he goes back, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think that there's really a situation like, if I'm Noah, I'm not giving this guy up without a fight. I'm just not. Like, he solved so many of their problems. He's been such a repeated draw for him. And also for him, you got to think of how New Japan has treated their young guys. Oiwa, compared to some of the young guys, like the Shotas, the Ren, like the Tsujis, of at least presentation wise, in a lot of ways, he's ahead of them. Of just in Noah, he's wrestling top guys every week. He's seen as a top guy every week. Like, he's doing these tournaments. Like, he's been a part of that main event conversation steadily. He's loved by the fans. He's loved by management. And so, yeah, like I said, that's it. I don't know if he comes back, but if he does, he's done so much in Noah. Like, this isn't a simple excursion. Like, this wasn't just a simple excursion. Like, how Yuya went to TNA and Joya. This was not that. Like, this was not that. He was a legitimate top guy and, a competitor company. So anything less than having him debut and not be like top shit on night one is honestly a downgrade for him. And so obviously he's not going to be in the New Japan Cup. And I mean, obviously he's not going to be in G1. And it looks like he's going to be in Noah for at least the foreseeable future. He's doing the N1 Victory. It looks like they're building towards him and Kaito is going to be the big match. Maybe they even save it for the new year. So I don't see him returning until any time before maybe the New Japan Cup. And so if he does return for the New Japan Cup, fuck it. I think he should win it all. I do.
I mean, I wouldn't be against it. I'm very interested to see what goes on there because, the excursion within Japan is a little bit odd. So yeah, I don't know when he would come back, if he does come back. I don't know like the time. I'm not big. I'm not like an expert on knowing like the timelines of excursions. It's like something I'm still trying to like. Excursions is something I'm getting into and figuring out still as part of my wrestling journey. But yeah, I mean, who knows?
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Like, excursions don't have rules.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing, too, of just like some guys stay forever. You got to think, Yuya was the last guy to come back. But like, he was in TNA forever. And
yeah.
then
Not very. He's
you
gone for
have
like
guys like Kosei Fujita who don't go on excursion at all.
mm-hmm.
Then you have guys like Shota who really go on excursion to Rev Pro, but they're also with Osprey, so they get to work with Osprey all the time.
Yeah.
Then you have guys like Yota Tsuji who technically go on excursion to Rev Pro, but he's also spending time in Mexico, and he says he learned absolutely nothing in the UK. You know, like, and then you have guys like Oiwa who go to he met Kaito last year, essentially in the G1, and Kaito just decides to keep him and says, I'm going to take him with me to Noah. And the thing at that point, nobody thought anything of it because I will be completely honest. My ceiling for Oiwa at that point was I was just like, oh, he might be a decent upper mid Carter. Maybe I think that his ceiling is now like Taichi. That's my, I think, you know, really cool wrestler, maybe not, may never be world champion, but just cool guy. Like, I thought that was his ceiling before this Noah excursion, but they let him go, and he's now, I think he has probably more potential than just about any of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. Like I said, I expected him to be back for this tournament, so I'm just flabbergasted that one, it's been essentially a full year. He's doing the N1 victory tournament. Oh yeah, and he's a favorite to win. He is a favorite to win that tournament, by the way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's only two possible winners in my mind. Either him or Masaki Miya. That's it. So the oil situation, man. Do you think there's a scenario where Zach wins the D1, but he won't win at Wrestle Kingdom?
It's Gato, so yes, there is a scenario. Yeah, it's like there's definitely a scenario that would. There's a good chance that like if Naito held that belt past January 4th, that it like just ends. I'm done. I might just like have lost interest at that point. Like it's my interest has been waning for a little bit. And then this lineup for the G1, my trip to Japan too, even though I didn't get to watch New Japan while I was there, but in Korakuen kind of like really helped reinvigorate my interest in Japanese wrestling again. And then this lineup I really like the G1 lineup this year, but if they just decided, no, we're just going to stick with Naito, who is kind of like running at 25% right now, I think that would just piss off a lot of fans.
I agree. I think too, going to Japan this year, I think that my tolerance for bullshit has been a lot higher. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to keep giving this a chance. I'm going to keep giving this a chance. Just because, like, I just think, one, just the culture is so beautiful. I think of just how they treat wrestling and just imagining those moments. Like, the thing is, just being in Japan, even mediocre moments can feel like amazing. House shows can feel like pay-per-views, you know? And so, like, imagining, it's just me, maybe that's the Pisces in me of just being delusional and imagining all of my fantasy booking coming true and like these fairy tale stories at Wrestle Kingdom, and you know, especially if hopefully I get to be in the dome again, of just like, that's enough to keep me going sometimes. But like, if they pulled the trigger on Zach for like, and let him win the G1 just to like have him lose at WK, man, cut the cameras dead ass. Like, I'm out. I think, at least for a while, I don't know if I would be able to do it. That would be rough, man. But like you said, it's Gato. So you do need to be prepared for all scenarios.
Yeah. I will not I've made a promise with myself. I will not let myself be bit by Gato again. I will not. I will
Really,
not let this man rip my heart in half one more time. He's done it. He's done it too many times at this point. I just can't. I can't open myself up like that to him.
real. I felt that on a spiritual level. Does it feel like the junior title at this point can be changed at any time, unlike previous years? What I mean is the junior title, like the heavyweight title, was protected and only certain guys had it over the years. It didn't feel like anyone could win. Okay, so I feel like this is in reaction to Doki winning. And I don't think that Doki is just anyone. Like, I feel like he's a guy who really has been doing the work for a very long time and been really consistent. Now, him winning so abruptly, especially with Desperado's reign was barely a month old. Okay, I do understand how that feels kind of questionable. But at the end of the day, this is what everybody said they wanted, in the sense of, you want new stars? This is what new stars looks like. You want new top guys in the junior division that aren't named Desperado and Hiromu? This is what that looks like. And I think that nobody's done more work towards that than Doki. And don't get me wrong. Now, I do think that there was a point when they was just throwing the title around, just constantly hot potatoing it between Desperado and Hiromu when they didn't know what to do with it. And then I think recently of just putting it on show felt like a disaster, especially during the Best of Super Juniors. I think I got so pissed off one night, I just turned the TV off and didn't watch for like 3 days. And so, but I think this is a good thing. I feel like this is a good thing.
I am in general a big fan of the titles feeling like they could change. Not saying I'm a fan of hot potatoing. I think there are cases where it's okay, but I like when the matches have like their stakes. You feel like, oh, this person could genuinely lose. And yeah, it does feel like it's a reaction to the Doki win, and maybe it was shocking to have him win. Like I saw you. It was your tweet that I saw. It was like 2 hours later, but I was like pulling into Epcot and I saw the tweet. I was like, oh shit. And I was like celebrating in the parking lot. But it's good. Like they have built him. Like I think people forget they sent him to AEW and he worked Rampage against Jack Perry last summer. In the build up to the Sonata match. That's a big deal. He had a
better match, and that was a better match than the actual Sonata match.
Yeah, and it was a match on Rampage, but that was a match on Rampage before Collision was like, it was Punk. I think Collision might have just started.
That was the second ever Collision episode that weekend.
Yeah, but that was Punk's Collision with 6 people. So it wasn't this version of Collision. Like if Collision was where it was at now, that would have been a Collision match. But there's not many people that New Japan have sent to work on TV and that AEW's wanted to have. So that's a big deal for him. So I'm really happy for him too, just in general.
I think also too of just Doki winning that title gave me hope for the G1 in the sense of he's almost like a Shingo Zack Sabre Jr. type of guy, of somebody who's been constantly passed up over and over again. And the fact that they put the title on him makes me think that, okay, maybe we get lucky. Maybe we get what we want. Maybe they'll put the title on somebody like, that, everybody is really happy to see, So that gives me hope of that. Maybe that's going to happen with the heavyweights as well.
Yeah, I agree.
So next one is, do you think Hanare versus Gabe could be a big match set for Wrestle Kingdom? I do. And I think that's actually one of my fantasy bookings. I want Gabe Kidd versus Hanare for the Never Openweight Championship at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, 100%. That'd be incredible what those two could do. I'd love it. I think I was talking to somebody the other day about I was texting my group chat. I was like, they didn't know who Hanare was. And so the first thing I said about Hanare is he's a fucking beast.
Truly.
Sorry, I don't know if I can cuss on this.
Oh no, absolutely. I do it all the time.
No, he's a beast. So yeah, I would love it. Like that guy, I've been a fan of Hanare for I didn't watch New Japan intently until the last 2 years and start learning who the people were. So 2022, I think was when I watched a match in the G1 with Tana, and I was like, oh, I didn't know Hanare was like this. And then I've been on the train ever since. So yeah, him and Gabe Kidd would be a very intense matchup. Like that might be like one of the most like intense matches we've seen in a very long time.
I mean, think of like what they did at the Corkin show, double knockout. I feel that New Japan has a lot of belts, and I think that some people might think the answer is to dissolve some of them. I think that rather than dissolve, I think some of them need to be defined. And I think the Never Openweight Championship is one of those belts of it has a very clear meaning. Like that belt has a clear meaning. That meaning hasn't always been lived up to in recent years, but has a very clear meaning. And so I think that Gabe Kidd and Hanare could really be the next iteration, the next generation specifically for that title of what a Never Openweight champion looks like. And I think that they bring the right intensity. And I feel like, they can get us close to those, the days of Shibata and Ishii wrestling for that belt at the Dome that's what I'm kind of looking for. I feel like as an in-ring show in recent years, Wrestle Kingdom has not been great cohesively. I think the vibes, yes, the pageantry, yes, and then you'll always have like those one or two matches that are just so good that they make it all worth it. But I think that this year they really have to focus on cohesion on this card. No throwing matches together. Like it has to everything must cook.
Yeah.
Literally. Because what you don't want is having Wrestle Dynasty the next day and it completely showing up the Wrestle Kingdom. Like you don't want to be shown up in Japan.
I think it's gonna do it no matter what, honestly.
I mean, yes, because part of it is you're gonna have like the talent that you're gonna have, but come in because a lot of them are going to be your old talent. But you don't want to be blown out of the water and embarrassed to the point to where it felt like you don't want Wrestle Kingdom to feel like a house show, Yeah.
A really good old comparison is you don't want it to be like a takeover and then you'd have SummerSlam the next day and everybody was only raving about takeover. Like opposite order, but same thing.
100%. And we know that used to happen literally all the time.
Every pay-per-view, every time.
Everybody was like, oh my gosh, takeover was better than WrestleMania. And you don't want that to happen. It's not a good look, and people act like it's not that big of a deal. It is. And people definitely notice, and especially for that to be in Japan. No, you don't. And in the Dome, absolutely not. No. So I hope that they're very intentional with card placement, but I do think that Gabe Kidd and Hanare for that Never belt could really help with that. What does New Japan have to do to make their heavyweight tag title division stand out? Have more teams. I mean, the last year, just having only 4 teams, and now you can't even do that anymore because Hikuleo's gone. More teams. I mean, that's the only, and I think they should adopt the All Japan method of, I think that every top guy should have at least one tag team that he could fall back on at any given moment in time.
I say the same thing with AEW when they were having, and I think the tag is improved significantly right now than it was at this point last year. It was a train wreck. Like when we had Double or Nothing, where it was FTR versus Jared and Lethal. Like we were in the trenches last year. But it's so simple to where it's just like take certain talent and just make them the tag team and just solidify them and keep them there. Don't really you can let them have singles matches here and there, but you just got to be consistent about it and make it known that these are tag teams and have tag matches that are not just for titles. It's a consistency thing. Like I said, the same thing about when you're pushing the Musketeers and you're pushing the young guys, it's all about consistency and just taking the time, because it's not going to just happen overnight where you're going to create some tag teams. You have to just stay at it for a while. And it's hard to do that. As a booker, I can understand why it's difficult to have that plan and just stick with it. But WWE recently did it, and you can see how much it's helped that tag division to where everybody's talking about DIY winning the titles and how great of a moment that was on SmackDown. And that would have never happened if they didn't just get in and like Hunter went in and just said, we're just going to build these tag teams for a year and a half, 2 years, and then we'll eventually get there. It's just, it takes time.
Absolutely. And I think that, hey, look at Noah of just Kaida Kiyomiya and Oiwa, they were a tag team for the longest.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were a tag team. Even like I remember, I was just like, why is Kaito in a tag team? And then eventually they become the focal point. They do Victory Tag League, really good showing there. And then, like, now they're good rivals. I'm not saying that all teams have to break up and become rivals, but the thing is, if you invest in your tag division, eventually it's going to pay off in stories for singles, tag, trios, all of that. Like, you just have to invest. And I think the last year, World Tag League was just such a downer. It was just such a downer. It was very bland. Like, I think the team that I wanted to see the most in World Tag League was Yota Tsuji and Shingo Takagi, and then like they split up right before that. Well, not split up, but I think Shingo had just become never openweight champion and wanted to focus on that. And so obviously they brought in Zandikin Jr., which was also cool, but it wasn't the same. And so I do think that this year World Tag League cannot be a throwaway tournament. It felt like this year was just a throwaway tournament. Like every tournament should count. If you're not building some of these young guys in the singles division, build them in the tag division. Like we should not be running rematches over and over again at Wrestle Kingdom. We should be having fresh matchups. If it's a rematch, it needs to warrant a rematch. I feel like that was one of the biggest problems with the tag division of just like, why am I watching Bishamon versus God for the 80 millionth time? Enough. Yeah. So those are my thoughts.
An underrated part of it too is like lock up your tag division because you've lost Aussie Open, you've lost God, you lost both versions of God. You've now lost, and you could lose Shane Haste when his contract runs out at the end of this year. So
seriously?
Yeah, his contract's up at the end of 2024.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they could lose TMDK.
So cry.
Well,
honestly, TMDK would be great in the AEW tag division, but because I don't think they're not going back to WWE, but oh my God.
Yeah, I don't see them going there.
I think that, and honestly, I think that they should keep them. Do whatever it takes to keep them.
Yeah, I think Shane Haste is very good in New Japan.
Yes.
Just give him the money, lock his ass up, invest in that division. Like you just look at like the amount of teams that they've just lost in the last few years because they've just lost them to free agency because they're not paying the people they need to be paid. Like just not even giving Aussie Open a contract was insane. Not even giving them anything.
I think also too of just take advantage of personal relationships, of real relationships. So, for example, I think like for World Tag League, I think you should pair up Shota Umino and El Phantasmo. Like they have a very real friendship, and I think that they will work very well together. Like pair those guys up, of just take advantage of some of this stuff, of just, and I think also too of just the junior tag division feels like it's in a much better position than like the heavyweight tag division. And also the thing is, these people owe you a favor in New Japan. Call in for reinforcements. Like in the World Tag League, they did it somewhat last year, but like, nah, like you need to be getting more people from AEW, like more than one team from AEW, not just Gates of Agony. Don't get me wrong, they did great, but yeah, you need to press. Not even just AEW, CMLL, Ring of Honor. Take some of these Ring of said Sean Dean was just in my, like, he just commented under one of my tweets the other day and was just like, it's one of his dreams to have a match in the Dome. And like, he really hopes to be on that card and he wants the infantry to face the War Dogs. When you have guys like that who want to come to Japan, put them in World Tag League. Like, especially some of these Ring of Honor teams, like, some people might not feel like Mason Madden and Mansoor, like, I think that some, GYV, Grizzly Young Veterans, have still never had that big Japan run of, like,
I would not be shocked to see a little bit of Bullet Club Gold influence in the World Tag League this year. Send the
Ooh.
guns over.
I think that they will learn a lot, and I think it would
They
really.
should.
They've come a long way, but I think that that will really get them polished. And
Mhm.
if you don't want to, if you still want to protect Jay White and David Finlay, that's fine. But send the guns over. Have them go up against the War Dogs.
Yeah, especially like if you have Russell Dynasty, if you want to potentially do Finley and Jay White or War Dogs and Bullet Club Gold on that show and finally have that collision we've been waiting a year and a half for, it'd be 2 years at that point. That's a good way you set it up.
I agree. I also very interesting from the tag division part for World Tag League as far as War Dogs. Who would Gabe Kidd's partner be with Alex Coughlin now retired?
Yeah. There was somebody the other day where I was
I'd be
like,
David Finlay, but
I had a prediction for who could join War Dogs. I can't think of who it was at this now. Like there was somebody I was like, oh, I think it was an AEW. I was like, oh, this is somebody who'd be a really good addition to War Dogs, but I can't remember.
I feel like they were teasing towards Kevin Knight joining the War Dogs, but he's a junior
He's
unless
a
he
junior.
decides to move up.
He's
He does
yeah,
have the body type to move up. He's a big guy.
he's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. So very interesting. Art. It would leave Clark Connors without a partner, but Drill is huge.
Yeah.
I don't think it'd take much for him to move up to heavyweight. Drill is huge.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this year World Tag League literally needs to be for the world of just
send Roddy. Send Roddy.
Please don't tempt me with a good time.
There it is. Send Roddy or send Kyle O'Reilly if you want to turn Kyle heel. Like Roddy, like they just had Roddy and Gabe team up. Send Roderick Strong. Please.
Oh my god.
This is all I want now.
Sending the Kingdom would actually be a really good job. Even if they don't send Roddy, I think sending the Kingdom could be cool, but they'd have to drop the belts first. Yeah. I do think that there should be probably, I don't know, maybe this is how they rationalize it, an AEW team and a Ring of Honor team should be sent this year. I would love it, honestly, if Roddy was in it, just because Gabe Kidd and Roddy teaming up was great. Like, they have fantastic chemistry. I think that Roderick Strong is a dog. Like, he's just... Yes. And seeing him wrestle more this year has just been such a treat. Like, him versus Kyle was so amazing. And I think it didn't get a lot of... Because, it was on the same card as Danielson and Ospreay, which was, But, that would be amazing. That would just be incredible. And also, I think that for the tag division, I think that not just with the AEW and CMLL partners, but I think that New Japan should be really taking advantage of some of these all-together partners. Like, you technically have Noah, and, I would extend, listen, in my perfect world, they extend an invitation to All Japan, and you get the Saito brothers. I've wanted the Saito brothers in World Tag League since the first time I ever saw the Saito brothers. Put them in, and I guarantee you lives will change, nature will heal, and all will be well. Saito brothers in World Tag League, please. I think that needs to be the tournament, because, New Japan, you don't have tag teams. Not enough. That just needs to be the tournament to where it's almost like you're hosting the World Cup, in my opinion, of just call everybody.
Yeah.
That's fun. Next question. I'm skipping all the ones that said, who are your picks for June? We'll get last. Do you think there will be any draws in this year's G1? Hell yeah. And I expect them to actually come in B block. And to protect Takeshita. And I don't think that it'd be like too much to protect for Takeshita, but like, I think if I have to choose between Takeshita losing to David Finlay or doing a draw to David Finlay, it's pretty obvious which one I'm going to pick. So I think that happens. I think we get one. I think we get at least one. I think we're going to get at least one in each block.
I could see them doing a Naito Zack Sabre draw.
Very fair.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't see. Well, you know what? That's actually no. I was about to say I don't see Naito going 30 minutes with Zack Sabre, but honestly,
It's
if
Zach.
he
They
goes
can go
30
30.
minutes, if he goes 30 minutes with anybody, I think that is probably Zack Sabre Jr. Of just
Yeah.
Zack Sabre Jr. is really good at protecting his opponents and
Yeah.
working around people's weaknesses. You have to think of like he had 4-star matches with Tanahashi this year.
Yeah.
And nobody else is really doing that at all. Of just his grounded style, his technical style, like he's able to make everybody look good. So if it's anybody, it's going to be Zach. But I agree with that. Which of the young talent do you think needs a breakout performance? Ooh, I think Yuya Uemura. We haven't seen anything from him. I feel like we
Yeah.
haven't seen anything, that real thing. I think that, Suji has shown promise. I think that, Shota has shown promise at certain points. I mean, obviously, a lot of them have consistency issues, but we've seen those glimmers, right? Like, who else? Gabe Kidd has, obviously shown a lot of promise of.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Yuya, this is make or break for him. And also, I think this is going to sound crazy, but I think Takeshita needs to have like such a undeniable performance to where he comes out of this tournament with AEW and Tony Khan feeling embarrassed by not having a world title on him. Like,
It's exactly what I was going to say
yeah.
too. I was about to say, like, right when you said Takeshita, I was like, I feel like Takeshita really, like, he needs that world-beating performance here. And I know there was a controversy with the Mox match. There's things behind the scenes going on there.
Which
But
one? Oh yeah,
the
that. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that whole incident was very political behind why the couldn't be for a title. But yeah, like it's this is the moment where like he can go and prove it somewhere else and say like I'm your top guy. Be like, you sent me here for a reason. Like, push me. I am the dude. Like, it's 100% like in terms of like a New Japan guy. I think Shota, I think, is a really big one because I see a lot in Shota, and that might just be like my blinders because I'm a huge Shota Umino fan. But I think it's for him, it is showing that consistency. Yuya Uemura is a big one who needs to just do something and really show that there's promise there in general. But in terms of the person who needs to really take the step, I think Shota he needs to show that he can be that guy, that he can be the next fill that role that Ospreay wanted him to take when he left. That he has the consistency because yes, he showed it in that Ospreay match last year in November or December, but can he do it on this level in a G1 10-person tournament? Is that really there, or did he just have Will Ospreay?
Yep, I agree. And I think too of just Shota's top two best matches are both versus Will Ospreay and John Moxley, and it's just
Yeah.
like, who is he without his mentors pushing him?
Yeah.
And I think that that's why they held off on the rematch so far between him and Mox, because Shota needs to prove who he is and show who he is. And honestly, I think he needs a character refresh too. I think he needs because it feels like even with the gear, the hair, it feels like he's just been trying to do a whole bunch of stuff and hope something sticks. Like,
Yeah.
he needs to find the thing. Like, he needs to find the thing. And who else I think needs to? Gabe Kidd, I think, needs to have a really strong block, I think, especially for the future of Bullet Club. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he needs to have such a decisive G1 to where he outshines David Finlay to where it's just inevitable that they fight.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so inevitable that they fight. And who else? I think Yoda needs a big block right now. I mean,
Yeah.
Naito,
Yeah. All the Musketeers.
yeah, I think especially with Yoda he won the New Japan Cup, but it still feels like he's in the same position that he was in before he won it. So
Yeah.
he's in a position to where he really has to prove that, okay, he's not just a good wrestler, like he can be the guy. So I think that the young generation specifically, and I think it's really interesting too, of just Takeshita has talked about that, after All Together, like Takeshita was really built to be like the big bad wolf of his generation. Like he was beating the shit out of everybody. Like he didn't take the pin in that match of just, he said that this year he's looking to really wrestle all of the top guys in his generation in Japan. Like he's trying to prove dominance on 2 different continents while primarily wrestling in AEW.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, he had that great match with Yuma Oyagi from All Japan. He had it in DDT. And then now he's going to, he wrestled a lot of those guys, Shota, Kaito, like all of those guys in at All Together. And now he's wrestling a couple of them in the G1. So I think that the young guys, all of them have a lot to prove, but definitely I think Shota and Takeshita for 2 different reasons.
Yep. I agree.
Last question. 2 more questions. Do you think Callum and Oleg will now have their own presentations, not as young lions anymore? Yes. And if they don't, I think that's stupid.
It'd make me laugh.
It'll make me giggle. Don't get me wrong, but it's just like, this is like literally the perfect opportunity. Like, why the fuck are you wearing black trunks right now?
Imagine like Naito has his whole elaborate entrance, and then just Callum Newman walks out and just
not walks out, runs out
with the black. I would be on the floor laughing. So I kind of do want that, but no, they definitely do need presentations like this.
Yes,
this is where you elevate them out of the young lions.
Absolutely.
Status.
And I think, hey, like I love bringing up, my beloved All Japan, but they did a really good job of this year in Champion Carnival, specifically for Ren Ayabe and Yuma Anzai. Mm-hmm. Finally, first night of Champion Carnival, they debut their new looks. They feel like top guys, and they feel like they took their rightful place. Like they did a really good job of that this year when Champion Carnival, which is their round robin tournament, of really finally giving some of these young guys, their own looks, their own styles. Just really good job. I want to see that with Oleg and Newman. And last question, do you think it's a shame New Japan didn't think of doing the qualifier format sooner? Yes. If this could have saved me from Chase Owens in the G1 sooner, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to lie. Don't get me wrong. I get why he's not in there. I'm going to miss Toru Yano a little bit. I am.
Yeah.
I feel like Yano used to, before House of Torture just got absolutely unbearable, I feel like Yano used to add the best little, palate cleanser, razzle dazzle comedy, like pop me, like when it was just him, like, it was good. It was fun. We had a fun time. I think it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to a point last year to where you had House of Torture interference in every other match. Then Toru Yano, like it was just too much.
Yeah.
And so now we can't have any fun anymore. It's all collateral damage. But yeah, I do think that they should have done the qualifier format sooner. But I don't think the qualifier format would have worked with the 4 blocks. So everything happened the way it was supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So now lastly, we have B block. Breaking this down, we've talked about a few of these guys, but we have El Phantasmo, Hiroki Goto, Yota Tsuji, Yuya Uemura, Jeff Cobb, Hanare, David Finlay, Ren Narita, Konosuke Takeshita, and Bolton Oleg. First thoughts on this block?
Interesting. I think the people they got in here, it's a very unique mix, because I feel like A block, it was very set, right? Like you had half of it were cookers, half of them were kind of stinkers. But this one is a lot more well-rounded in the talent that they have. And I'm very interested to see how they mesh here, how they delve out the wins, because I like you said, I think the winner is coming from the A block. Honestly, my top like 3 options are all in the A block. So here I'm a lot more interested in the wrestling and who they decide they want to push, because it could genuinely go to any of the, except Goto. Like Goto's the only one who I just don't think is, because of where he's at in his career. I see Goto kind of serving the same role as like Great O'Khan in the A block, but I'm very interested to see like who they decide we want to put our whose eggs they put in. There's the eggs basket phrase. Like I can't phrase it correctly right now, but you know what I'm trying to say.
They put the eggs in.
Yeah, whose basket they're gonna put the eggs in here, and the top 3 guys that they take out of here. Takeshita obviously will be a little bit protected because he is an AEW talent. That's just what's going to happen whenever they send someone over. Tony is very protective about his guys.
But that's also the thing about Takeshita too, of just like, that's really weird. Because he's not just AEW guy, he's a DDT one too.
He is a DDT
so who knows what Gato's about to do? Like, I think that's the scary part of just like, if he was just AEW guy, I'd feel better. But because he has that DDT stamp on him, and they are, even when he was announced for the block, they have the AEW and the DDT logo up. Yeah. Who knows?
It's funny because it's like his last month in DDT too. They got him like right at the end of that DDT contract.
Oh wow! So is his last contract?
It's up like really soon.
So yeah, because I know he's doing Wrestle Peter Pan.
That might be the end. I know it was up like within like the next few months.
That might be his last contracted match. I'm interested to see. I don't know. Like, can he resign? I don't even know. Like, does he even have the option to resign? Like, I really enjoyed him working like both at the same time. I'm not gonna lie, as a fan. Yeah. But I wonder how that's affected like his sustained push in AEW.
Yeah.
So
definitely plays a role.
So yeah. This is also the meat block.
It is. Yeah,
this is 100% the meat block.
They'll be throwing some shit around in here.
Like, these are some big guys. Like, you have Bolton Oleg, you have Takeshita, Hanare, Jeff Cobb, Yuya's pretty large, Yota Tsuji, and Hiroki Goto. This is the meat block.
Yep.
This is going to be the wrestling. I know this is going to be the wrestling block. True.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this block.
And Yota Tsuji versus Konosuke Takeshita on night 1 is inspired.
Yes,
that's inspired. Like, I am so excited, and also that was one of the things I was looking forward to with Bolton Oleg, of just Bolton Oleg versus Takeshita, Bolton Oleg versus Hanare, Bolton Oleg versus Jeff Cobb. Bolton Oleg versus Tsuji versus Goto. Oh, This is real graps, guys. Yeah. Yeah. Thoughts?
I'm pumped. The immediate things I think of are the young guys, obviously Yota Tsuji, Yuya Uemura, Konosuke Takeshita, Ren Narita, Finley to a lesser extent. I look at them and I say, okay, those are people who you need to watch and see how they book and their wrestling styles. First time that Ren Narita is going to be Ren Narita, Yota Tsuji, and Yuya Uemura will be in a 10-person G1 Climax, as well as I don't think El Fantasma's ever done a 10-person G1 Climax as well, like either.
I don't think so, no, because he was a junior.
Yeah, 2022, I think he was his first year in the G1, and that was the first year where they limited the blocks, and they did the 3 block. So I'm interested in how they do with the format. Hopefully there's less bullshit with Ren, and they can just let him wrestle. I'm not feeling great about that, honestly, but I'm hoping. And then I also look at Jeff Cobb, and David Finley, who have not world championships, but they have championships right now, and how they deal with that, how their losses can set up future matches. I look at Takeshita being somebody who can beat Jeff Cobb, and that's a really a decent matchup you can put on an AEW show if you wanted to bring Cobb over for it, and you do a match for that title, and you can do a time limit draw there. I would very much like to see that on they got to fill some matches for All Out 2 weeks after All In.
Oh, that'd be a great match for All Out. I would like
Yeah.
that for the TV chat title. Yeah.
I could see somebody like a Yoda Suji getting a big win over Konosuke Takeshita on that first night. I talk about the surprises on night one. I could see that being a big surprise on night one, and then you get the people talk like you get them being like, oh, maybe the Konosuke Takeshita isn't going to do that good in the tournament. That could be a really good storyline talking point going into his second matchup. And you also set up a match for Takeshita and Yoda Suji either in AEW, or you maybe do something down the road in New Japan and let Konosuke Takeshita come back over to work him. I'm very interested in the implications of Takeshita being in this tournament and how they handle him, because this is the first big AEW guy to come over for a G1. I don't really
Well,
count Moxley.
Eddie did it last year.
Oh, Eddie did do it last year, right?
Eddie
I
did it
forgot
last
about
year.
Eddie.
But I do think that it's a completely different ball game to have
Yes.
Takeshita in. And I think not one, I mean, he's Japanese. And I think two, I think that's just a whole different thing of he's already been this huge DDT guy. Like he's established on 2 continents. And I think that Takeshita, especially, like, you know, let's just be honest. Last year, they put all the young guys on one block, right? And
Yeah.
if we want to be completely transparent, the best performance out of that block came from Kaito Kiyomiya, and he doesn't even work there.
Yeah.
And so there is a dangerously high chance that we are going to be in that situation again.
Yeah.
And when, you know, during the Best of the Super Juniors, we had a conversation. We were also talking about all together as a whole. Me and Josh were saying there was a time where it's so funny when everybody talks about the AEW New Japan relationship. There was a time where a guy like Konosuke Takeshita would have solved a huge problem for New Japan Pro Wrestling. Okada leaves, no problem. They would have just bought him off of DDT. And like, you know, that's your new world champion now. Oh well. Obviously, you know, with AEW in the mix, that's complicated. But there is a huge chance. That's why I'm also scared of Gato's booking of just like, not only is this guy going to get over with the crowd, there's a chance he comes out of this tournament looking better than every last one of your guys.
Yes.
And that's also, he's also on the block. Like, of course, I feel like A block has the higher star power as far as like, you know, top guys. But as far as pure wrestlers, I think B block kind of has them there of just like, these are performers, even if they don't win. Well, for the most part, you know, you do have like Yuya and Ren in there, but you have real performers in here. Mm-hmm. El Phantasmo is a completely underrated performer. And also, he is interesting to watch. I think that he is one to watch in this tournament because last year's G1, they kind of told the story of him but atoning for the sins and trying to make right a lot of the bridges he burned while in Bullet Club. And he was embraced heavily by that audience. And now that he's a singles guy, you know, I'm interested to see how he like reestablishes himself now, you know, with Hikuleo going, who knows? And I think he's, you know, you have Goto, who is just Goto, as we saw in the New Japan Cup. Like, he still can go, and he's still, you know, that's going to be a crazy match, Takeshita versus Goto. Like, it's just going to be insane. Yep. Yoda Tsuji, like, the thing is, even if you don't pin Takeshita, you have the very hard job of trying to convince everybody that you're better than him. That you're just as good of a wrestler as him. Which is, I don't want to be in that position. I would never want to be in that position, especially on night one. I think Yoda Tsuji has more pressure than anyone. Yeah. Of just like, even if you don't win this tournament, on night one, you have to prove you're the guy.
Yeah.
On night one.
Yep. 100%. It's not even just like, yeah, you have to prove it on night one, but this is really Yoda's block to take over and make it his and show out, because you don't have to deal with Shota and Zack Sabre and Naito being in there too. Like, Takeshita is really the only like big, like everybody, like I said, everybody in here is pretty good for the most part, but you're not dealing with like those top guys who were like all pretty much like the top candidates to win. So you can take over and make it your own and show that you are the guy. It's very easy to take that opportunity for Yoda, and I really hope he does, because he's immensely talented. He just needs that right opportunity.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, do you think like Takesha is really going to be like that test, because there's already this, how do I say it? There's already this narrative going around that New Japan is beneath AEW, not as good as AEW. Takeshita adds a whole different layer to it, because if you lose to him, you don't, like, it's not even New Japan is beneath AEW, they're beneath DDT, which is, you know, some people would die rather than like wanting to hear that. And then too, I think like a big wild card in this particular block is Bolton Oleg. Like I said, think of how protected he has been. His debut was in the Tokyo Dome. He won titles with the ace, the president of the company, while still a young lion. He won the tournament to qualify for that last position of just, you have to, don't get me wrong, I could be completely wrong, and maybe they just have him lose every match, right? They could, but I don't think they're going to do that. Yeah. Tana loves this guy, and it's very clear, like, he sees him as the future. They like, he's one to watch in this tournament, because it looks like he is going to be built very heavily. He's going to be built very heavily, like, and so Yota Tsuji has to find a way to shine. Do I think that he can? Absolutely. I think that he can, but he has to unlock a certain level of grit that I'm not sure that we've seen from him yet. And I say this because if anybody who saw that hair versus hair match he had with Yuya, no sauce, no just holds and arm drags, and like, no, like, they didn't even leave a hair versus hair match, and they didn't even leave the ring. Like, no, even slamming each other into the guardrails, the steps, like, go on, girl, give us nothing. Like, there's a certain level of grit, and I think that Takeshita specifically is so aggressive, especially now. He's still a heel technically, even though I don't think he's going to be a heel for much longer, but he's still a heel. And you have to think, there are rumors, if Rampage last night was anything to go over, Don Callis will be coming with him. So that has to unlock a whole different level of aggression in Yota Tsuji. I think he had a great match with Hiroki Goto during the New Japan Cup, so I am excited to see that again. I think that they have better one in there. I think Jeff Cobb has been having a crazy year, like, finally being pushed as, like, you know, a singles guy, which has been great. I think Hanari is going to push him immensely, but I also think that Yuya Uemura, I want to believe he's going to surprise us all. I really want to believe that. Like, I want to believe he hears everybody counting him out, constantly being overlooked, and I want to believe that he's going to show something so undeniable about himself. I genuinely want to believe that. Now, will it happen? I don't know. Ren Narita, listen, I've given up. I've given up. But I want to believe that there's some potential in Yuya. I think he needs a character refresh too. I think just about all of the young guys, except for Yota Tsuji, needs, like, new gear, new everything, like, refresh. I think Tsuji is the only person who's gotten his presentation right from day one. And I do think that that's a large part of it.
Yeah. I agree.
And so, yeah, David Finlay, I think, is also somebody to watch in this block, not because he's going to win, not because the matches are going to be good, but he does hold what's supposed to be the second highest title in the company. They're not going to be giving out losses like that, unfortunately. Now I do hope that El Phantasmo is able to get an upset. They have a lot of history together.
Yes.
El Phantasmo is interesting. I think this G1 will be a very clear indication of if he resigns or not.
Mm-hmm. Especially after that ladder match at Forbidden Door.
Oh yeah.
I think AEW very much wants him.
And I think also too of just if you look back to like AEW in its origin and like the type of guys that are in AEW, because at the end of the day, AEW is a Ring of Honor, Shikara, PWG. At its base, it's like those promotions and the guys who used to regularly appear in New Japan, right?
Yeah.
And so it feels like in year 5, they're going after guys are rigorously going after their friends. Like I'm just like, like Bucks have convinced Okada to come over. Osprey's convinced Ricochet to come over. Like the guys who like everybody just wants this happy PWG reunion. Hey, listen, I fuck with it. But I think that's really what the vibes are. And you have to think, El Phantasmo was 100% like in that space for a very long time of like, that Ring of Honor, like New Japan space, Bullet Club guy, like even look towards, the first Forbidden Door. He teamed up with the Bucks. So I say all that to say it's not a big shocker. And kind of like feel, and even look at what he's teasing right now. He's like, "Oh, I gave everything for Jay and Juice, and they left me, etc." Like it's almost like they're building the story right there. But I do think that he could be something special in New Japan, but it just depends on how he's booked. I'm interested to see. Like I said, I think a lot is going to become very evident of like, one, which one of these people stay, which one of these people go, of just like David Finlay, is he in it for the long haul? He has a brother in NXT.
He's got his dad.
Like, hello?
David Finlay has had a guaranteed spot in WWE for almost a decade.
Yeah.
Whenever he wants it, it's his.
And it's almost like WWE almost prefers guys who come out of the dojo. Like they want to sign dojo trained guys because like, you're almost insured. Like even if you're a shitter in New Japan, compared to like these NIL performance center people, like you're going to be the best wrestler in the world.
A few hours ago, I had a conversation with some people about NXT has a very big male singles wrestler, like top guy problem. And that's immediately filled with a guy like David Finlay.
Yeah. And I'm not just saying that because I'm trying to get him out of here. not saying that.
This is what we did all last year with Tama Tonga and Tongaloa.
Like it's so funny because I will say you always know when my agendas are being fulfilled because when certain guys jump ship to WWE, I'm just so complimentary. Mm-hmm. They're just like, I wish him the absolute best. This is the greatest thing he ever did for his career. They got a good one. I think that the answer to every single problem, especially that's why I love options in wrestling now, right? Like, if we can get everybody that is, thinking it up in my favorite companies and send them over to the companies that I don't watch, but I know for a fact they would be amazing there. Like when I see people talking about, oh, Tongaloa is like so amazing, I'm like, that good for you. Everybody on this earth has a place where they belong. And I want every wrestler to find it. Just not in the promotions I watch.
Yeah. I like Tama Tonga is about a main event of pay-per-view. So good for him.
Do you know how fucking crazy that is?
Tongaloa almost main evented until Jacob Fatu showed up.
Like, guys, like And I don't watch Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views, like anything. And so I only get like bits and pieces from the timeline. And like I'm just always amazed of like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? That's why somebody was like people were saying of just like, oh, Hikuleo is going to be a flop in WWE. No, he's not. He might, respectfully, Hikuleo has potential to be one of the greatest giants that WWE has ever had.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a different system.
It's a completely different system. It's going to cover up all of his weaknesses. Like, you also have to think, like, Hikuleo, I'm not hard down on Hikuleo. He's actually a friend of this show. He's actually been on like, Maps and Graps before. And he's like, I got to meet him while I was in Japan, but Hikuleo improved dramatically, like, over the past year. Like, I think about that match that he had with Kenta last year at the New Japan Resurgence, kind of rock. The thing about Hikuleo, he actually said this in the interview, is he was like, I rarely get to wrestle guys closer to my size.
Yeah.
Like, he was just like, I'm constantly wrestling super small guys. And like that's why, even like, if anybody saw during the New Japan Cup, that match that he had with Bolton Oleg was pretty good. And I think it was because they're closer to the same size.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like Hikuleo has a lot of potential if you can get him in the ring with guys who are more so his size. And WWE is going to be able to, one, do that for him. And then two, he has dojo training. He's not an he's not an NIL grad, like just like, just straight out of college. Like, he has dojo training. And like, even if he wasn't a perfect fit for the New Japan system, like compared to like a lot of the young guys coming out of like WWE right now, he's going to be like a superstar to them. Like, what do you mean you spent 5 years in Japan? Like, like, he has a great look. Like, he's going to be a superstar. Now, is he a guy that, who's ever going to be IWGP heavyweight champion? No, with a heart. But with a heart, of course. But his potential is endless in a place like WWE. In their current system, like, yeah, his potential is endless. And so, I think a lot of these guys, like, I think David Finlay, that's a future NXT champion right there.
David Finlay is a future not North American, United States champion.
Yes. Well, yes.
Yeah. That's a WrestleMania opener right there.
Yes. And one day, they're going to literally run him versus his brother, and it's going to be the most dramatic thing ever. And they're going to roll Finlay out there, and they're going to, like, somebody's going to accidentally hit him and knock him down, and the whole crowd is going to gasp, and it's going to be a big thing. It's going to be a huge thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be a huge thing, and people are going to eat it up, and it's going to be great because, like I said, everybody deserves to find where they belong. Just not here. Just not here. All right. So we talked through B block. So let's get down to the nitty gritty, the good stuff. So these are the rules. So basically what will happen is, obviously, the top 2 point getters will automatically just the top point getter.
It's the top point getter.
Yes, will automatically advance, but then for the knockout stages, so A block, the number 2 versus the number 3 will have a match. B block, the number 2 versus the number 3 will have a match. And then the final will have the winner of those matches versus whoever the number 1 in their block was versus whoever was standing for block.
Yeah.
And then those matches, so the semifinals and the final will both take place in Ryogoku. So who would you put as if you're booking it all, top 3 for each block?
So if I'm booking it, I'm gonna mix my yeah. If I'm booking it, it's a little bit different. But I in the A block, I got Zach, I have Shota, and I have Shingo Takagi. I think I think that's what they should do. That's how I would book it, anyways. That's also what I think they're going to do.
I
I
agree.
I
That's mine
I,
too.
I protect Naito. I keep Naito. I find a way to get him out of there. Um, it's I think you would have to take at least 2 losses in order to make it out. But I think as long as one of those losses is to somebody who's advancing, you can do the tiebreaker way to get him out and still protect him by having him go 8-2 or 7-2.
I actually think one of those losses is going to be versus Jake Lee.
I think I also had that as one of them. I have him losing to either Jake Lee or Evil. I think he loses to one
I
of
think
them.
Jake Lee because he just beat Jake Lee at the All Together show in the main event. So I think Jake Lee gets that
Okay.
win.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. I also, I think I told you I have him losing to Shingo.
Yeah. Oh, I would love that. Listen, I will say though, if he loses to Shingo, Hiromu is going to demand that match. Which is going to be fantastic, fan-fucking-tastic.
Yes.
I agree though that I would protect Naito because he does not need to be going to the semi and the final. I don't think that his body. I mean, he's the champion. You know, like it's a whole different type ball game when you're the champion, and I don't think that he needs to put himself through that. I would have. Who would I say would be number one?
I have Shingo as my number one.
I think Shingo for number one too. So I think Shingo, and then I think Zach versus Shota for those 2 and 3 spots.
Yeah.
Now the only I could potentially see Gabe in somebody's spot.
I could also see Gabe. I would not be shocked if they did put Naito in there. I don't see Sonata. I don't see Great Khan. I could see Evil because Gato loves him.
I'll kill myself.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. So I'm also I can't let myself even think that it's going to happen. I can't do it again.
But you know what though? If anybody's noticed, and I think that also part of and I need to recheck Tana's 10-point plan just to clarify what one of the points are. But I think one of those points was to limit interference. And I think that House of Torture has been becoming more and more background characters ever since Dominion. And I think that that's on purpose. And so I do think that maybe Tana's doing some overrides, but I'm not as scared of Evil as I once was for that reason. But like I said, this could change at literally any point in time. But I'm not as scared of the House of Torture issue. Like, I think that at minimum, I think Tanahashi understands how big this G1 is. And like, you can't allow House of Torture to become the story here. Like, you just can't. Like, I think it's too important. It's too many stakes on the line. So yeah. But I agree. I think that now I think that the only person that has to advance 100%, like I think that there's a chance that they swap out Gabe for Shota, but I doubt it because not Gabe for Shota, Gabe for Shingo, but I don't think they would put 2 foreigners up there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would also put Zach, Shingo versus Shota. I would be fine with either of them advancing to the number 2 spot, but in my perfect world, Zach wins.
Yeah, I also have Zach winning the A block, and I do that semifinal. I have it be Zach and Shota, just to push because you can't push Shota to win yet. I would push him just to that next.
I agree, and I think that Shingo at least making it to those knockout rounds.
Yeah,
it's already dramatically better than what he's been doing before. Yes. It makes him feel legitimate again. So B block, top 3.
Takeshita, I think, is an easy top 3. I would be shocked. This is not a speedball Mike Bailey last year in the Best of Super Juniors. This is someone coming from AEW. Like I said earlier, Tony Khan protects his guys, even with Takeshita, who has not been protected immensely in AEW. Tony's going to protect his investments no matter what. I know how he works. So I have Takeshita going into one of those three spots. I also have Yota Tsuji. I think that's another fairly easy one. And then with David Finlay having that global heavyweight championship, I think he also should take one of the spots just to at least establish what that title is. He also went fairly far last year, lost to Will Ospreay in the quarters. I forgot that bracket was so weird. I think it was the quarterfinals was when he lost to Ospreay. So I could see him also going far this year. So those are the three I have.
Yeah, I agree I think David Finlay advances. The thing about Takeshita is that I also think that I know a lot of people like be like, oh, you're just being hopeful. I think that Takeshita is getting a mega push as soon as he comes back from the G1. I think that that's finally going to be it. And I personally think he's going to win the Continental Classic. Much like Eddie last year did the G1 and then come back and win the Continental Classic. As long as he stays healthy, that's my pick to win it all. And I think especially, I don't know if you take the title off Okada and Wembley, but if you do, here's the thing. Let's say that my GOAT is healthy and you have Okada Omega 4 at Wembley. Either way you spin it, even if Okada wins and then will wrestle Takeshita at World's End for that Continental belt, oh my God, that's the biggest program of the winter. But even if you spin it, if you have Omega back winning that Continental belt and has a rematch with Takeshita without the Don Callis situation, oh my gosh, that's the biggest story of the winter.
Yeah. Which I expect Omega to miss at least the rest of this calendar year. I could see them potentially running Takeshita and Okada at one of the pay-per-views fairly soon. Yeah. I don't necessarily see it as soon as Wembley because I think they just need to let time take over. Yeah. All Out, I wait a little bit for All Out, but Full Gear is one of their original 4 pay-per-views. Wrestle Dream is another big one. And World's End, if he does win the Continental Classic, and they would have to change the format of the CC a tiny bit to get there because the original formatting was the finals of the CC was at World's End. You just do the finals on TV, which is fine. And then the winner faces the current Continental Champion in Okada. I don't know how they're going to do that. The Continental Championship is such a weird thing, but yeah, having him beat Okada at World's End would also be a good idea.
It is a weird thing. I do think that Takeshi is going to get a big push when he comes back. So I do think
I do too.
Eddie didn't make the semis he didn't make the quarters last year, but I think that Takeshi is a bit of a different case. I do think he's going to go fairly far.
I think Eddie's such a unique circumstance in that he is someone who probably just went over and said, "Do what you want to do with me. I don't care." And Tony probably
that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, Tony didn't care. He's like, "You're Eddie. Go do what you want to do." Takeshita is an investment, a young guy. It's an investment build, so I could see Tony having a lot more power in what Takeshita's booking is.
Absolutely. And so I too would go now. If Takeshita's not the third guy, I would go Goto, and potentially they would do the Yota Tsuji Goto rematch from the New Japan Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go Goto would be my 4th switch option. So I think who's your overall B block winner?
Damn, this one's way harder than the A block.
It is.
I'm gonna say. I know I originally said Tsuji was going to beat Takeshita on the first night. I think Takeshita beat Tsuji on the first night. I think Tsuji gets his win back in the semifinals. Yota Tsuji advances to face Zack Sabre Jr. in the final.
I agree. I 100% agree. I think that's what happens too. And I think it's the perfect thing that keeps them even. I think that Yota Tsuji and Takeshita, they're similar in age, similar in position. these guys are going to fight forever. You know, hey, fuck it. If you want to, you can really run the match back at Wrestle Dynasty if it's really that deep, you know, in the Dome. And also, I mean, Takeshita needs a big match in the Dome. Like, I think that's a must eventually. And so, yeah, I agree. So, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Yota Tsuji. Who you got?
So, I'm going to go. I don't have faith in Gato here to push Zack Sabre Jr. the way I would like Zack Sabre Jr. to be pushed.
That's fair.
I really want to see the LIJ implosion at Wrestle Kingdom. So I'm going to go Yota Tsuji winning the G1 Climax, really cementing him. Like, he won the cup. I think that they're like, oh, we messed up here a little bit. Let's redo this.
So here's the thing. I think that's exactly why he can't win. And I think it's because, and like even coming off of that 6-man match, like Yota Tsuji needs not just the moment, he needs the match. Naito can't give him the match that he needs.
Yeah.
And Shingo, that's why I said in that 6-man tag, it was so odd because you got to think Shingo and Yota Tsuji have typically been partners. So when they came face to face, I don't think anybody was expecting like, I think that is his match. I think that the card needs to be filled with LIJ on LIJ violence. And I think honestly, the big LIJ implosion, it's very clear that they're building to Naito versus Hiromu. And like Hiromu's not in this tournament. And also I think too of just going back to like Naito in his current state. The only person who I think can truly have that serviceable Wrestle Kingdom worthy main event match with him at the Dome is Zack Sabre Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I'm just like, my thing is, I think New Japan has to feel it of just like, you've lost a lot of guys. And like, Zach, he's one of those people, he's not after money. He's one of the rare guys who's not after money. He just wants to be the guy. And my thing is like, I feel like if you shut the door in his face, he's 36. 36 is like that's like the golden age for a lot of guys, like, you know, of just where they really, you have to figure out, okay, where are you in your career? Like Okada was 36 when he jumped ship, like, you know, when he left. Tanahashi was 36 when Okada beats him, you know, when the Rainmaker shock happens. They're like, you know, it's a very interesting, like, it's just a very interesting, like, you know, how old was Omega when AEW started? What, 35? So Zach is
now, 35.
So like, he's in that era now to where Zach has no time to waste. Don't get me wrong. I think he's going to be wrestling for a long time. He takes care of his body like no one else. Like, he's going to be fine. But as far as there's a limited window to be the guy. And I think that if you shut the door on his face, it finally becomes the time to where, not saying that he 100% leaves, but he's at least going to start entertaining other options. And you know, everywhere wants him. And I think we've actually seen Zack Sabre Jr. compete in every other wrestling company. He did the Cruiserweight Classic in WWE, turned them down. He's done so many matches in AEW, turned them down. Of just like, come on, man. Like, I don't know. I'm going to choose to get my heart broken here. Like, I've realized that I'm taking the risk. And like, I avoided this. I think earlier this year, I was like, okay, maybe Jota will win the G1 or something. Like, because, you know, I didn't want to invest in this. But like, coming off of the matches with Hechicero, the match he got out of Orange Cassidy earlier this year versus Bryan, God damn it, I'm going all in on Zack Sabre Jr. There's only ever been one foreigner to ever win the G1 Climax, and that was my GOAT, Kenny Omega. And honestly, with the amount of loyalty that Zach has given New Japan, and also just not even just loyalty, talent, like just genuine talent. And even what he's done for like TMDK of just, you can't tell me that Kosei Fujita would be the prospect that he is right now for New Japan if Zack didn't take him under his wing and mold him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and even like TMDK and like, you know, Robbie Eagles and Shane and Mikey, if they stay, if they re-sign, a large part of that is going to be because of him.
Yeah.
A large part of that is going to be because of him, of just, and even what he does, like actually learning the language, like, you know, he does, like, you know, the side gigs, and like he shows up in DDT, he does the side shows of, like, he is fully committed. And my thing is, if you don't commit to him, you risk him walking. And New Japan cannot afford for him to walk. At the end of the day, don't get me wrong, you need domestic talent, but you do need foreigners. You do.
Yes.
I'm going to choose to get my heart broken here. I'm going to go all in on Zack. Like, I'm going to go all in on Zack. I am. I'm going to fucking
I am such a 50-50 split. And part of me picking Yoda, like swinging that way, is because I knew you were gonna pick Zack. So I'm like, okay, it's more interesting if we have different choices. But I am genuinely like a 50-50. I might change my pick by the time the press conferences end and I listen to what they both say. And that first night's over, I'm like, okay, this is kind of how I feel now. I just think I do agree with everything about Zack, and I feel like I would be incredibly happy with, like, honestly, if Takeshita won, I wouldn't be like angry because I love Takeshita a lot.
Oh, I fucking love that.
I'd like Tsuji winning, Zack winning, Shota winning. I'd still be real. Like, so Shota is one of my favorite wrestlers in the world. I love Shota Umino a lot. Shingo winning, like, there's a lot of people who could win that I'd be very happy with. I would just like go all in on Yota Tsuji, who is like, Zack is 36. And while I think it's like you do need to keep him, and I would put the title on him, like I put the title on him at like Dominion. I would just tell him, like, hey, we're gonna put the title on you at Dominion. You stick to that plan. You give it to him there, and then just use Naito losing to build Tsuji. I do agree with your point about, like, Tsuji does need the match. And I'm gonna hope and pray that Naito has one more in him to give to Yota Tsuji.
Yeah, I will say I have zero faith in that. And I think it's because we saw that match earlier this year. Like, if we didn't already see the match, I will say, before New Japan Cup, I said that Yota Tsuji was my pick to win the G1. Mm-hmm. Because I was just like, this needs to be an LIJ implosion story. Same thing like you. Then I saw that match, and I'm like, this cannot be the match. Yeah. Like, this just can't be the match. It just can't, guys. I don't know. It can't. And like I said, like, you know, different people have different stories. Like I said, I think that Shota is almost definitely facing Mox.
Yeah.
At Wrestle Kingdom. I think he should. That's going to make, everybody has that different thing that's going to make them a star. And I think that Yota Tsuji, what he needs, I think he can get that from Shingo. I don't think that there's anything else that he can get out of Naito. Like, yes, he can get the belt, but like, moments are, until like he has that signature match, like that match, it's just going to feel like just a belt in his hands. And I feel like that's the biggest problem with New Japan right now. Like the global heavyweight belt, right? It feels like just a belt.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like meaningful. And I think right now, especially the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, especially this iteration of the belt, that has been a major concern. You know, New Japan is typically, at least for me, has been the promotion I go to where for pure wrestling. And I don't think that we've been able to get that out of the world title this year.
Yeah.
And I think having another stinker at the Dome, especially with Wrestle Dynasty the next day, like, because the thing is, you don't have, everybody's not waiting for the roll call, you know, like that was the thing this year. Everybody was waiting on the roll call, you know.
Yeah.
But now all eyes are on Yota Tsuji. Like, you have to, I would hate for him to be in that position, because the worst thing that can happen is if you finally do push the youth, you put him in that WrestleMania, not WrestleMania, Wrestle Kingdom main event, and he bombs.
Yes.
That's the worst thing, because it takes forever to get that stink off of him. Yeah. And by then, guess what? Naito was like clearly beyond cooked at that point, so he can't help him clean it.
Mm-hmm.
Which puts him in a whole different, longer journey. And I just think that New Japan doesn't have time to fuck it up. Like, they don't have time to fuck it up. Like, I mean, hey, the worst case scenario, he can win the New Japan Cup again and redeem himself as Sakura Genesis.
Yeah. Great points. I agree with everything you said.
Yeah. It's just about, just that one Gato. He makes me so nervous. He makes
Gato
me so
scares
nervous.
me.
He really does scare me.
Yeah,
No short man should ever have that much power. No short man should ever have that much power.
Wait, am I taller than Gato? I need to look.
He might be.
No, we're the same height.
How tall is he?
He's 5'9".
Oh, I'm 5'7".
Did you think he was like 5'5"?
I did think he was like 5'5". Because whenever he's at shows and like he's on the ringside, I'm always sitting down, so he always just looks short. Yeah,
Gato beat the allegations.
he beat the allegations, guys. So that's the G1. I think that we have a very, very exciting slate. A lot of stories. Like, I am choosing to believe that this is going to be the most exciting tournament in the universe. Now, I will probably get my heart broken, but I am choosing to be optimistic because I think a lot of people right now are really down on like the PRO scene in New Japan. And my thing is like, the sun has to come out eventually, right? Like, right? It does. Especially like with Dynasty of just like, I want New Japan to feel like they can compete with any promotion in the world. Like, at the end of the day, like there was, even though like right now this year they are nowhere near my promotion of the year, historically they're probably my favorite promotion in the world. Like historically.
Yeah.
About all the matches and moments that they produce that are so near and dear to me, and how they make me feel. Like, just like those type of emotional thriller matches that you're just not going to get on American TV. Like it's just not built like that. Even with the best wrestlers in the world, just like how things are set up of just like the feeling of staying up and watching Wrestle Kingdom and that the Omega Ospreay match for the first time in the like watching that match for the first time, thinking that Will Ospreay is dead. Like you rarely get those feelings, man. Like you just don't. And so I'm rooting for New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm actually rooting for Naito. I really want everybody to stay healthy. I think that's another thing too of just I really, really, really want everybody to stay as healthy as possible during this tournament. That's always a thing too, and that's one of the things that you can't plan for. So, any final thoughts on the G1 Climax 34 tournament?
I'm very hopeful. I haven't been the last like 2 G1s. I haven't been super excited for, even though like New Japan wasn't that cooked in 22. The format of it was just not really for me. And then last year was obviously like a train wreck. This year, I think I'm so excited because of what they need to do and because of what lies ahead and because of how in the dumps we've been. Like we're down bad right now with New Japan. And because they have that, like they can't get worse. It's kind of like AEW with the Continental Classic.
Don't say that.
I shouldn't. But it feels like where we were last year after Full Gear when AEW started the Continental Classic, where like AEW was in a rough spot.
Yes.
And they had a round robin tournament coming in, and they were able to get back to glory. And so I'm really hoping that they use this to get there. That B block, the wrestling in there excites me a lot. The A block, I'm intrigued by what they can do. I'm hopeful for some of the people in there to be able to show out a little bit and to take the opportunity and run with it. I love being back to the condensed 10-person blocks. That's probably my biggest like plus about this, and also the 30-minute match limit. I'm really excited. Like this is the first time in a very long time that I've been really pumped for New Japan. That's not like a show I'm going to. Like I was really excited for Windy City Riot, but I was going.
Yeah.
But like I'm not gonna be in Japan for any of these, but I'm still like really pumped to actually watch everything. Like I feel committed finally to like watch everything and get really into it.
I agree. I think also too of just after going to Japan and like I was there for Wrestle Kingdom, and like at the end of the day, there are so many diehard New Japan fans and like diehard Naito fans, and like all I could think to myself is just like, this card isn't even like the best. So imagine what this could be like if they were putting their best foot forward. You know, of just like the potential alone is enough to like get you excited. And I also think that with now that Okada's gone and everything, I feel like this is going to sound so fucked up, but I feel better because I know for a fact that now the writing is on the wall to the point to where they can't ignore it. Like they have to do something. Like they have to do something. They know they have to do something. We know they have to do something. Everybody knows they have to do something. So no matter what, change has to happen.
Yeah.
And also like there's going to be a lot of progression. Will we like all the progression? Who knows? But there will be a lot of progression coming out of this tournament, which is very exciting. And I think also too of just like certain stuff of just really cool. Bolton Oleg is in the G1 for the first time. That's exciting. And I think also this is the first time, even though, you know, Yota Tsuji, Shota Umino, Ren Narita, they all did the G1 last year. This is their first year really being immersed with the rest of the talent, you know, of like they're finally wrestling these top guys in singles matches. Like that's exciting. Konosuke Takeshita is in the G1 Climax. It doesn't get more exciting than that, you know. And even like with Zack Sabre Jr., the story that he's building of just like, I feel like, you know, this is all or nothing for me. Of just you, even if you don't care about anything else that's going on in New Japan right now, you love this guy, you want to root for him. Like you just want to root for him. Like I'm going to like you have that like mindset of like, oh, I'm going to keep up with everything he's doing in this tournament because like I'm rooting for him that hard. Like even like somebody tweeted like, you know, the other day it was just like, do you want to see Zack Sabre Jr. go to AEW or WWE? And like almost all the quote tweets were saying like neither. I think he's one of the best wrestlers in the world, and I want the company that he's at to finally treat him like the king that he is. Like, it's rare to reach that type of consensus on wrestling Twitter. Very rare.
Yes.
Very rare. And people are like, I would love to see him like at AEW every day, but no, I need him to be IWGP champion first.
Yeah.
And that's just rare to have that type of goodwill. You know, with just everybody, whether they watch New Japan regularly or not. Like, he's just so well respected. I think so many people are going to be locked in for his journey. I'm excited. And I think also, too, of just, hey, this is the first G1. Tanahashi's president. So, you know, like, I just feel maybe I'm just, like, delusional. But I just trust that the ace knows what he's doing. Like, even if Gato is weird, like, I trust now that there's like some checks and balances in the system now. So nobody knows how to pull New Japan from the grave like somebody that had to do it with their bare hands before. So yeah, that is all. Thank you everybody who tuned in. This was always great. Thank you, Kaden, for coming. So the Climax tournament officially kicks off on July 20th in Edion Arena in Osaka. Should be a great crowd. They're going to spend the first 2 nights there, heading on to Hiroshima, Kagawa, Nagasaki, Fukuoka for 2 nights, Yamaguchi, back to Osaka, Aichi to Korakuen Hall, 2 nights in Korakuen, then to the Yokohama Budokan, then to Miyagi, Japan, then they're going to go to Nagata, Shizuoka, Chiba, and then the final 2 nights will take place in Tokyo at Ryogoku. So it's going to be a fun time. We're going to go from July to, I think, about a week before All In. So a lot of fun stuff on that front. And I will be doing my best to get up every day. I said this for the Best of Super Junior, and I failed. As soon as House of Torture kept interfering, I quit. I'm not going to lie, I did. But I am committing to getting up every single night and watching every night live of the G1. Now, am I going to do this completely? Probably not, but I like to set a goal. I like to aim high, and I will be providing coverage. Have some things I'm working on. I can't really talk about them yet, but we'll be covering things on a, if not night by night, every other night by night basis. So stay on the lookout for that. Is there anything that you like to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Kaden, Kaden_FTW. And you can also find my work on WrestlePurist.com. Got some stuff I'm working on for them. So just stay on the lookout. Some writing stuff, some YouTube stuff. So yeah, that's mainly what I'm working on. Thank you so much for having me, Lyric.
Of course, this was a lot of fun. And you can always find me at Lyric Wrestling on Twitter and Instagram. All of the links to my work are in my bio. And you can subscribe on YouTube at Lyric Swinton. We're almost at 500 followers, subscribers. I wanted to say followers, subscribers. So thank you for that. Subscribe if you haven't already. It's G1 season, folks. Everybody get excited. It's G1 season. It's all in season. It's N1 victory season. Whole lot of things, blood and gut season. Oh, and Heart tournament about to end soon. So a lot of things to be excited about. But until next time, I'll catch you guys later. And thank you for watching Maps and Grabs. Bye.